and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. The Goffstown Zoning Board is an elected board of 5 members and up to 5 appointed alternates. Currently, the board does have 5 members and 1 alternate, and if anybody is interested in serving on the ZBA, you can contact Town Hall in the Zoning and Planning Office, or online they do have applications. The board has a posted agenda for each meeting and tends to follow the items in order. The board will open the public hearing on an application to receive testimony from the applicants, the abutters, and the affected parties, and to ask questions about the request. The public hearing will then be closed, and the board will enter into a deliberative session to discuss the merits of that request. For each application, the board will decide to approve with conditions, deny, or continue to a later meeting. You're welcome to watch the deliberations this evening, or you can contact Town Hall to get the results. For an applicant's request to be approved, there must be an affirmative vote of at least 3 members. An applicant can request a continuance if there is not a full 5-member board to act on an application. If you're aggrieved by a decision made by the ZBA tonight, you have the right to appeal to Superior Court. However, before appealing to Superior Court, you must request a rehearing with this board to preserve your right to appeal. Rehearing requests must be filed within 30 days of the decision, and it must state all the reasons why the decision was unlawful or unreasonable. Failure to request a rehearing may forfeit your ability to appeal to Superior Court. And I'm going to ask that everybody please silence your phones for the evening. We do have a very full agenda, so we are going to hopefully not have a lot of repetition of anything, and we're going to just keep on moving along. If we have to, we may continue an application to next week so that everybody has a chance to at least start their application. Our first thing for tonight is the minutes of the ZBA meeting of September 6th. Approval or corrections?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Oh, you know what I did forget was board introductions. We'll start with Derek. Thank you.
Derek Horn, Town Administrator.
Jason Cody, member.
Gail LeBrecq, I am the chair and also recording secretary.
Leonard Stewart, Vice Chairman.
Alan Yaton, member.
Judy Lane, member.
And Judy is going to be a voting alternate tonight in lieu of another member who is absent. So we do have our full 5-member board. Our first application tonight is Build Savvy LLC applicant and Christopher and Kristen Freitas, owners, seeking a variance to allow an accessory attached dwelling unit that will be 1,000 gross square feet, whereas section 5.2.1 provides a maximum size of 800 square feet of gross floor area. The property is located at 4 Pasture Drive, map 8, lot 60-1. It's zoned agricultural. This was continued from the September 6th, 2022 meeting, and a special exception for the accessory dwelling unit was approved at that meeting. If the applicant wants to come forward and have a seat at the table. You're different than the applicant we had last month.
I have shrunk, yes.
And you are?
My name is John Weaver. I'm counsel for the Freitases.
Okay. All right, what do you have to tell us, Mr. Weaver?
So, thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the board. I appreciate your time tonight and the kindness you showed to my client at the last meeting, continuing the application consideration to this hearing. I submitted a letter shortly before the deadline for new application materials to be considered by the board at this meeting, and I was hoping to walk the board through the variance analysis in that letter.
That would be this.
Yes, that's correct. The letter dated September 27th.
And it's where you analyzed all the variance criteria. That's not out of line considering the continuation last month, right?
No, they're just supplementing their application.
Okay.
That's what
Then
we're
we'll go ahead.
Great. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. As I mentioned, my name is John Weaver. I represent the Freitas family. Just to do a quick overview, both partly for my benefit as well as yours, the application was originally submitted on August 19th. As you mentioned, it was for a special exception to allow an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, on the property, as well as a variance permitting, let's say, a 1,000 square foot ADU rather than the 800 square foot ADU that's permitted under the ordinance by special exception. There was a hearing held, as Mr. Horn mentioned, on September 6th. At that time, the special exception was granted, as the chair mentioned. I think there was some confusion on our part, and I apologize about that, as to what the relevant criteria was that was being considered by the board at that time, with an emphasis on our part being given to the special exception rather than to the variance criteria. I watched the video. As you mentioned, it was somebody different at the time. It was Joe Landry, the builder, who applied. He did a very good job for the special exception, has a good set of plans. Watching the video, I thought that the board did a very nice job discussing the variance criteria at that time, then nicely offering to continue the hearing to give my client time to reconsider and look at what their options are. A couple weeks ago, they approached me asking to review their application to see what I thought. And after reviewing the application, the plans, discussing this with Joe and the family, I concluded that this is a classic example of a post-simplex variance that was exactly what the New Hampshire Supreme Court and legislature envisioned when they changed the variance standard in 2001 and 2009. I will say this is one of the weirder properties that I've seen during my practice. But I think because of that, the unnecessary hardship standard is tailor-made for an application and for a variance like this. Based on the video that I watched, I know that the general feeling of the board was that they didn't like the size of the proposed ADU, but I think that the chair's comments toward the end of that hearing were really spot on, and that is that the board won't deny a plan because they don't like it. It's really about the criteria, whether they like or dislike the plan, that's irrelevant. So, as I mentioned at the top of my comments, I'm going to walk through my letter and explain how the additional 200 or so square feet satisfy the variance criteria under New Hampshire law. And the two big things that I want to point out and have you keep in mind as I'm speaking are first that per the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, which the publication of which I included in my letter, a 1,000 square foot ADU, when attached to a 2,000 square foot single family home, is an accessory dwelling unit, not a duplex. And two, per the New Hampshire Department of Business and Economic Affairs, and I have that publication, that's the zoning handbook. I'm assuming it's in the town records, but if not, I certainly have a copy that I can submit. A key question when looking at unnecessary hardship is whether the restriction as applied to this particular property is necessary to give full effect to the purpose of the ordinance, or can relief be granted to this property without frustrating the purpose of the ordinance. And as I'll explain, because of the uniqueness of the property, the roads and access ways that surround the property, an ADU of this size will not look like a duplex, which is what the limitation on ADU size in the ordinance is intended to accomplish. So, I'll go through the variance criteria relatively quickly, with most of my attention spent to unnecessary hardship. That's historically what the most difficult criteria is, but I will lay them out at first just to get them in the record and give you an opportunity to ask questions if you have any. So the statutory criteria that have been considerations have been supplemented by the Supreme Court of New Hampshire. One, the variance will not be contrary to the public interest. Two, the spirit of the ordinance is observed. Three, substantial justice is done. Four, the values of the surrounding properties are not diminished. And five, literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. So, running through the first four quickly, the variance will not be contrary to the public interest. ADUs of this size are not contrary to the public interest. The New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority publication that I submitted, Accessory Dwelling Units in New Hampshire, a guide for municipalities, notes in several places where 1,000 square foot ADUs are allowed by right or are acceptable accessory uses. The Architectural Digest article that I referenced in my letter notes that ADUs from 600 square feet to 1,200 square feet are typical. And we're not arguing that Goffstown should make ADUs of 1,000 square feet allowed by right, but there's nothing to suggest that the increased size from 800 square feet to 1,000 square feet will be contrary to the public interest. And with regard to size, because I know that was an issue that came up, I think that it's important to look at what the Freitas already have allowed by right and special exception versus what the the variance would allow. So their current home is 2,370 square feet. With the ADU under special exception, that increases to 3,170 square feet. The variance on top of that is really just a 6% increase, so it's really not that large a percentage increase. Second criteria under the variance standard, the spirit of the ordinance is observed. Excuse me. The New Hampshire Supreme Court has been clear about connecting this criteria and the previous one, saying that the requirement that the variance not be contrary to the public interest is related to the requirement that the variance be consistent with the spirit of the ordinance. So these two criteria are linked. In order for the ZBA to find that this variance does not observe the spirit of the ordinance, you'd have to find that it violates the ordinance's basic zoning objectives. As the Supreme Court in New Hampshire said, mere conflict with the terms of the ordinance is insufficient, right? It really has to fly against everything that the ordinance is standing for. The requested variance, in contrast, is consistent with the ordinance's purposes. Section 1.3.1 of the ordinance states that it's designed to protect and promote the public safety, convenience, comfort, aesthetics, prosperity, health, and general wealth of the inhabitants of the town of Goffstown. And by approving the requested variance, the Freitas will be able to better support their extended family, as the larger space will not only permit Mrs. Freitas' parents to live there, but also host family members who visit her parents as the heads of the family. This will promote their convenience, comfort, prosperity, health, and general wealth, all without negatively impacting the convenience, comfort, prosperity, health, and general wealth of their neighbors. So the ADU, at its proposed size, represents a compatible use that is consistent with the spirit of the ordinance. Third criteria, substantial justice is done. The guiding rule for this, per the courts, is that any loss to the individual that is not outweighed by a gain to the general public is an injustice. So here we need to look at what the Freitas' gain versus what the impact to their surrounding neighbors or the town would be. So the Freitas', without this variance, would lose much of their ability to house Mrs. Freitas' parents and host their extended family that comes to visit, as the center of the family moves to Goffstown with the heads of the family. And this will result in a lesser home experience and poor family life for the family that lives there. In contrast, the general public will experience no tangible benefits by denying the variances. The Freitas' have communicated with their neighbors about this project. They support it. The ADU will not generate any further demand on town resources beyond those that would be used by an ADU allowed under special exception. So, because the loss to the Freitas' outweighs the gain to the general public, substantial justice is done by proving the variance. Fourth, the values of the surrounding properties are not diminished. I'm not going to speak too long on this. The letter that I submitted included a table looking at other properties in the Freitas' neighborhood where there's already an accessory dwelling unit. I also pointed out where the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority noted that accessory dwelling units can increase property values. There's no real connection between the information, the letter, the evidence in the neighborhood, and the size of the ADU. So I don't think that and I don't hear anybody claiming that the values of the surrounding properties will be diminished by the approval of a larger ADU. That brings us to the fifth and usually the most troublesome criteria under the variance standard. Literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. It's usually one that applicants and abutters and most people trip over this one if they're going to trip over any of them. And what the statute states is that an unnecessary hardship means that owing to the special conditions of the property that distinguishes it from other properties in the area, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purposes of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property, and the proposed use is a reasonable one. Those two criteria. So really what we're looking for are special conditions at the property, what the public purpose of this size limitation for ADUs and how that applies to the property, and is the ADU proposed use a reasonable one. So with regard to special conditions at the property, as I noted at the top of my comments, it's one of the weirder properties that I've seen in my practice. It's really racking my brain trying to think of one. I don't think I've ever seen a corner lot in a more rural community that has an old farm road on the third side. Well, it looks like an old farm road, so it looks like it has frontage almost on three streets in one way or another. And frontage, as you know, really changes how a property looks from any of those streets. So with those three roads, lanes, access ways, however you want to phrase it, that distinguishes it from the other properties in the area, which don't have this at all. And to the best of my memory, I can't think of another property that's similar to this. So that special condition sets this property aside from the others in the area. And then how that special condition affects the fair and substantial, why there's no fair and substantial relationship between the public purpose of this ADU size limitation and this property with those special conditions. Now, as I understood the board's discussion at the last meeting, and as I read the ordinance, the general public purpose was preventing the character of a single family neighborhood from changing because accessory dwelling units appear too much like duplexes, that the ordinance and the board were really concerned that that would happen if this ADU at this size was approved. Because of that frontage that makes this different from other properties in the area, the appearance of that ADU would be very different than if it was only had frontage on a single road. The appearance of that is going to be very different, and it's simply not going to look like a duplex. Now, with regard to the proposed use being a reasonable one, this was already granted a special exception for an ADU, so I don't think that there can be any doubt that having an ADU at this property in of itself would not be reasonable. Those are my general comments. As I noted, the two things to keep in mind is that an accessory dwelling unit of this size, under state documentation that I've submitted, is considered an accessory dwelling unit, not a duplex. And the key consideration for unnecessary hardship per the state reference manual that I noted before is whether the specific application of this ordinance provision to this unique property really makes sense, whether the public purpose of that provision is actually going to be forwarded, or whether this variance can be granted and that public purpose is still going to be protected.
Is that it?
I rest.
Does the board have any questions?
Yeah, where on Pasture Lane are the other ADUs?
That is a good question. I'm not sure. I've been, for certain.
Yeah, across the street and then on August Circle. Yeah.
So across the street and on August Circle.
Okay.
Is that it? Do you know?
For the moment.
For the moment? You've usually got something going on. Judy, do you have any questions?
No, it's done.
Len?
Not at the moment.
No, thank you.
Okay. I do want to clarify, because you mentioned something about duplexes, and that was my comment in the meeting. And I had mentioned about a duplex, and it wasn't about the appearance of the duplex. It was more the size-wise of how it was getting close to being, I guess maybe the term should have been more like a two-family. And that was my intent, not that it's going to be a side-by-side duplex where they're identical, because I know that they're not. So I just wanted to clarify that. I want to know a little bit about that third road or access way.
So have you driven past it?
No.
So it was originally a driveway to a home on the far end of the subdivision.
Right.
That since the subdivision was built, now has a driveway from the subdivision. So it's essentially a long abandoned driveway that still looks from the street much like an access way. There's a log in place there now so people don't drive up and down it, but it looks like an old country road. It does in fact cross over the Freitas' home.
Okay. But is it on their property?
It is, yeah, part of it.
Okay.
That driveway was part of the original subdivision in the house that was within it. That was a much larger piece of property, which was subdivided, and the house that was there remained. And that's the driveway that served that house.
Right. But it doesn't now.
That's okay.
No, I'm saying-
They have a driveway off the main road, yes.
Right. Okay.
And to the best of my knowledge, that if it's used at all, it's used for utility companies that have to do work on the lines there. The log was placed there to prevent people from going up and down. I think largely, say, ATVs or snowmobiles during the winter.
So who owns that third road access way?
So I admittedly haven't done the title research on this, but as I understand it, I think most of the property that it burdens, in addition to the Freitas', is the homeowners association for Timberwoods. Is that the?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's to the north of the Pasture Drive neighborhood, there's another subdivision, the Timber Woods Homeowners Association, and it does this weird, almost like an emerald necklace, where it curves down in a very narrow band down to the property where most of that road runs over.
But that road is, I just want to be sure, that road is not on the Freitas' property, or it is?
There's a portion of it at the, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a portion of it at the beginning where it goes on to, sorry, the name of the main.
Tibbetts Hill.
Thank you, Tibbetts Hill Road. That crosses over their property at the very beginning of the access way there.
Roughly
before
how
going-
many feet?
That's a good question.
I would say 100 yards, 50, something, yeah.
100 yards,
Yeah.
give or take.
Okay. Anybody else? You've got something, I can see you do.
In my professional wisdom, I know it could be made smaller,
Oh, it can be.
because there's a lot of wasted space in that floor plan, the way it's designed. That's a professional comment. Take it for what it's worth.
Well, we can save that part for deliberations unless you want to ask questions about it of the applicant.
It's also the first case where the presenter subtracted the stairwell that serves the unit out of the square footage that he requested. And that would be a first for this board.
Did we include the stairwell? We-
You know, he deducted the stairwell, the stairway enclosure from the square footage that they were requesting.
If I could speak to that, not, this isn't a total answer to that, but I think that in terms of how the ordinance applies specifically to this property, I'm not sure that I can neither agree nor disagreeing with that observation. I think that the way the ordinance applies to this particular property, I'm not sure that the inclusion of the stairwell square footage is relevant to that consideration, although I think that since you-
Access to a unit is considered part of that unit. Because that's what it's there for. It's not for accessing the house, it's there for accessing the ADU.
I guess my point is that, and I agree that however the board decides to calculate the square footage should be consistent throughout all applications, including this one. But the application of this particular ordinance provision to this property, I think you can have that conversation while leaving that an open item.
I had one other concern.
Go ahead.
That is, if you look at the site, that's a full wall on the basement of the garage, on the back of the garage, so that at the foot of the stairs, they can go directly outside rather than going down the side inside the garage. And by doing so, you can take 4 feet off of that garage and you never miss it. And so, I'm not in favor of it. I'm just not.
I guess sorry, go right ahead.
It's because the voters approved this ordinance with 800 square feet. So no matter what New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority says, no matter what some state statute says, our ordinance adopted 800 square feet. And it was approved by the voters. If this town wanted bigger ADUs, then maybe we should be doing something about it. But right now, no one has, and no one has proposed anything.
Jason, you were going to say something? I do want to caution the board, we're not getting into deliberations at this point, so we want to keep the conversation maybe going more outward with questions of the applicant at this point, if we have them.
I did have another question.
Okay.
So based on this plan,
I don't see a second egress from the building, from the ADU. So I'm curious as to where that would be, and that really goes into how our town firefighting, which is something that would be paid for, you know, with this, that is affecting. That didn't make sense completely. I mean,
No, but you want to, if I could paraphrase, you want to know where there's a second, where there's a direct access to the ADU, and if there isn't one, why would that be the case?
Correct, because that would be considered contrary to the public interest. The firefighting apparatus would be.
So there is an entrance from there's a set of stairs going up the side of the ADU to a deck, and there's an entrance there.
Where is that on this plan? And is that deck square footage included in this? Because it needs to
No.
be. It does need to be, does it not?
Oh, yes, it does.
So here's that's the deck right there, so I think it's gonna be right there.
So.
Is the deck off the office?
It's off, it's off this part up here, yeah, off
Yes.
this. So according to that plan that he just showed me, just so everyone, we can pass it around, I think that would
Yeah.
be helpful. The deck is 37 square feet. I didn't see what the stairway is, but the stairway also has to be added to that.
Yeah,
So this is more than 1,000 square feet now.
yes.
It does count.
That was never shown to us,
And if I could
so
ask a
it's
question?
irrelevant.
Is there is this the interior door then going across right here at the bottom of these stairs, going into here,
Yeah, I believe that's the case.
this here?
That goes into the unit. Yep.
Okay.
So this is from, at the bottom of the stairs, you're in the garage, you're walking up, you take a right, you go into the house, you take a left, you go into the ADU. We didn't count that in the square footage of the ADU as a stairway. I do a lot of ADUs around, never heard of
And we
that.
heard that story last time.
Yeah.
Well, it is,
So,
but that's,
Sorry, Madam Chair, did you want to see?
Yes,
the
please.
plans?
That's not even here on the plans we were given. So this one's from in the house.
Yeah, that's the stairs. One, turn left, you go into the ADU, turn right, you go into the hall.
Okay. And, okay, so this is part of the home, or the ADU, this little landing at the top of the stairs.
I think the landing is up there.
Oh, they come in this way?
Yeah, I believe
The
so.
door to come in is this way?
Actually, let me double check with Victor. Thanks, Jeff.
Okay. This comes in from the
House.
home, the
Yeah.
house, goes upstairs.
this goes down. So if you walk through this door, take a left down the stairs, you would then be in the garage. So from the garage, so they can stay in don't have to go outside, they go inside, walk up the stairs, and they can take a left into their ADU.
So they go up these stairs?
That's the outside.
Right, that's
this-
the outside,
Yeah,
to the deck, to this?
no,
No.
no, you would have to walk around and then come through here. So it's deceiving, but these stairs go down. That platform is at the bottom, down in the garage level.
Okay,
like
so that's in the
basement.
garage, so they come in this way. Are there stairs then going into
No.
the,
No, this platform here is straight in. It's same level
as the house?
as the house, yep. And it's just an area where where you can get to either unit, the house or the ADU.
Okay.
Derek, I was under the understanding that we don't count the stairs as a square footage.
Stairwells are included in the definition of gross square footage. However, this is a shared stairwell. Our ordinance does not make that distinction.
There's a door in the garage into the basement of the house, into the old garage, which would be the basement access for the people that live there. And they have a front door.
Again, this
And they
is,
have a back door in the house.
it's a shared access. If somebody were to ask me as administrative official interpreting the zoning ordinance, I would not count it. Again, it's a shared stairwell.
Well, what,
I don't know if this zoning board has interpreted that differently in the past.
So, just to clarify what I was asking, the deck off the office and the stairs going down from it, those serve that ADU only.
So,
And I was,
one, those are not on the plans that were submitted with the application.
Okay.
There is a window at that back, not a
oh,
door.
okay, so.
And I will say that gross floor area does say, it does not include cellars, unenclosed porches, or attics not used for human occupancy. So I guess, I think if it was just stairs and a landing, you said it was 37 square feet?
Plus the stairs, yeah.
So is that a 6x6, basically a landing? We would not include that.
right, well, one of the things, because you had mentioned that at the last meeting as well, and so I went back to double check it, and one of it says is that the gross square area of 800 square feet is within the residence. So if it's on the outside, it's not really within the residence itself. It's used by the residents.
Oh, so that was different than the last time I was dealing with this problem. Thank you. Thank you for the
So are we,
clarification.
if I could
both of
just
you.
ask again for clarification, are we saying that this set of stairs in question, is that connecting the primary residence and allowing for entrance to the accessory dwelling unit?
It
According
serves,
to the
it serves
criteria.
both.
It serves both, okay.
Okay. Does the board have any other questions? I'll open it up to the public.
So,
Or-
so
Okay.
in our deliberations here, this is just a procedural thing, because I'm new. The plans that we're looking at, we don't include the deck and the stairs. So basically, with that information, there's one egress.
Yeah, the plans we have here,
That's what we have to go by, right?
well, I think if, I'll leave that up to the zoning board to determine, but if somebody were to, just much like amending an application, I don't have an amended set of plans, but if they're saying they're going to have a landing and stairs off the rear of the unit,
They can be held to that.
Okay.
Because what they present here, even if it's not in the package they submitted to us, they can be held to that.
Okay, all right, cool, thanks.
And the building inspector will be sure of that,
Okay, cool, thanks.
right?
So I just want to clarify that the board would be voting to have that point of access from the deck. Is that my understanding?
Huh?
That was
No.
what,
No,
Because we do not have any submitted paperwork.
no. That what would happen with, if you're going to, the plan that you showed us on the tablet is not the plan that we were presented.
Okay, excuse me.
It's different.
Okay.
And, but it can be brought forth as new information to us, and you are held accountable for that. If it was approved tonight, you would be held accountable to have that deck and that
Okay.
set of stairs on the outside as well as the one that's on the interior.
I just want to make sure that what the demonstration we made to the board members tonight would be included within the record. Well, from what you're saying, that is the case.
Yes,
Okay,
it
thank
is.
you.
And you would be held accountable for that, and at the time of the construction and inspections and things like that, if it's not there, then it would be a problem.
Agreed.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions of the applicant?
I'll save my remarks for deliberation.
Okay. Alan? Judy? No. Jason?
so, if this was denied, or because of size, and a smaller space was requested, they wouldn't be able to live there? the parents wouldn't be able to live there?
I have not had that specific conversation, but that's also not the criteria under the statute. Criteria.
No, but you used it in here, so that's just happening.
Well, I said that they would be, their ability to host family and their parents would be diminished without the extra 200 square feet.
As the larger space will not only permit them to live there. I guess that's how I was reading it, was that it?
I think that the second clause, that not only permit them to live there, but also host family.
Mm.
So I think that the two uses are joined together.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Any more, Jason?
Nope.
Okay, then I'm going to close.
Ma'am, we'll have an opportunity to make closing remarks before the
Yes,
board.
I'm going to open it to
Okay.
the public first.
Thank you.
And then if you have something additional to say before we have deliberations, you'll have that opportunity. Or actually, yeah, we'll wait. Is there any, I'm going to open this to the public if there's anybody that has any comments about this application? Going once, going twice? Okay, public hearing is closed? Well, not really, right? Because
Correct.
you still want to make your comments.
Yes,
Go
thank
ahead.
you, thank you very much, Madam Chair. So I appreciate the comments, the questions, the points of concern that the board has mentioned. I would like to draw your attention back to the chair's comments at the last meeting, that whether you like or dislike the plans, that's not the relevant consideration.
I'm going to stop using those words.
The relevant consideration is the criteria. The criteria is what matter.
Yeah.
And under the statutory framework that's presented in the statute, that the New Hampshire Supreme Court has ruled on, that the legislature has ruled on, that's a criteria that has to be satisfied, and this application satisfies this. I certainly am sympathetic to the idea that the voters of Goffstown approved 800 square feet, and the desire not to violate the ordinance, but the whole point of the variance is that we're going to take what the ordinance requires and we're going to alter that because of an unnecessary hardship and the other criteria that I listed. Under the statutory definition of unnecessary hardship, the layout of the roads, of the Old Country Road, the old driveway that's there, the public purpose of this provision of the ordinance isn't going to be furthered by denying this variance. On the contrary, the public purpose will be supported by issuing this variance under the criteria of the statute, which is, as has been said, is what the board has to vote on. So with that, I will rest again. Thank you.
Okay. All right, then I'm going to close the public hearing and the board is going to enter deliberations. What does the board have to say? Alan?
Didn't we look up the statute as to what was written in the state statute?
On ADUs?
Yeah.
Yes, there's, I don't recall what the statute is off the top of my head.
Well, neither do I. That's
But
why
I
asked.
believe it was a minimum, a town could not
Yeah.
restrict below 650 square feet.
Right.
But you could put other restrictions on it, but you could not restrict below 650 square feet.
Right.
Okay.
So the thing is that the minimum and maximum ADU sizes, there isn't, let's see, in addition, the ADU law gives municipalities discretion to decide the minimum and maximum ADU sizes, except there can't be a requirement that an ADU be less than 750 square feet. We're within that because we're saying 800.
Right.
And for me, I'd go back to, if we were to put let's say it was an 800 square foot house, and somebody wanted to put a 750 square foot ADU on it, as long as it fit the requirements, we'd be fine with that. Even though it's 90% of the size of the other house. It meets the rules, it would be fine. So I can't use the percentages of saying that it's 6% more than what's permitted. It's
know,
actually 25% more.
I wrote that very same thing down because it's
So-
not, it might be 6% of the size of the entire building. No, that's not what it was. He said 6% increase. But it is 25% increase in what's allowed in our zoning ordinance, and that's where it's significant to me.
Right. And that, now you're looking, and then, again, ADUs are a little bit close to my heart, right?
Yeah.
when I went through this process, like, we had an existing building that would have been easily 1,200 square feet if I wanted to do the whole ADU. But the rule said 800, we were able to do that within there. So, you know, now I start to look at these criteria and say, well, the variance will not be contrary to the public interest. Well, it's 25% larger than it should be, which means that
It is.
fire and medical are gonna be impacted if they have to go and service it. Spirit of the ordinance is observed. I don't think so, because in this particular case, we're saying that, you know, the parents need to live there and they wanna be able to host family members, so they need this extra space. We call that a home. Like, they're moving into an ADU, not an additional home. So it's going to be smaller. Plans may have to change. I mean, that's what we ran into, so, okay. Substantial justice is done at, I would say that because I have a problem with A and B, I have a problem with C. I would say that the surrounding properties values, probably not. I don't see how that wouldn't be affected. But and then with the unnecessary hardship, I didn't even, like, when I was there driving around and stuff, looking around, I didn't even notice the other road, so there was no impact there. It was just the roads around it, so I don't have a problem with an ADU there. I think it goes back to the spirit of the ordinance is not being dealt with. It's 25% larger. If it was 6%, I probably wouldn't have such a big deal with this, but it's a lot.
Mhm.
And if I may quote Chairman LeBrecq again, it's about the criteria. I think we've had cases in the past on ADUs where someone through some design quirk or whatever might have come in with 820, 825 square feet. That's variance criteria, or variance qualified words stand for. When you're looking for 25% plus what the voter passed ordinance said, I'm with Jason on that. It's a matter of it's going for too much for a variance, and basically the argument that I see in Mr. Weaver's letter here is we're emotionally and financially invested in this. Well, you're invested in it before anything has been approved for it, and while you can feel bad about that, we need to, again, it's about the criteria. I think we need to follow the town criteria. Second part is, I've yet to see a demonstration of hardship in this. The things that Mr. Weaver cites in his letter about the second old farm road on the property or whatever, how does that constitute? I was a bit persuaded to start with when you look at the size, but then you realize why would that constitute a hardship? Why, okay, you've got a big property, but why does that qualify you for more, 25% or more than the ordinance requires? I don't see a hardship. I think it's too large a variance from the amount of square footage in the ordinance, and, you know, I don't like it either.
Alan,
I'll pass. You already know how I feel about it.
we can put it on the record.
I just think it can be made smaller. If you start with a three-car garage and you build on top of it, you're stuck with the space. I think it's a design problem. And I think that can be addressed.
Yes, but we're not the designers.
I know. It's,
It's not our role to tell them how to design the project.
I'll speak my piece. A lousy design.
Okay. Judy? All set? Okay.
That, and I have to agree that it doesn't meet the criteria at all. Because I was involved in the process of the ADU and 800 square feet. So I've listened to everything about ADUs that you want to hear.
I'm working on a motion, but I need to write it so that I can read what I'm saying first. So
Okay.
bear with me, unless somebody beats me to it, which is fine. These new rules make these things difficult.
I'm going to add to the criteria about the public interest not being contrary. I don't think that the applicant's case was made in this, in that the argument was comparing our zoning ordinance requirements to those of other publications in other communities instead of Goffstown's, which is not required to be the same as all the others. And again, it gets back to the 25% of what's allowed versus, you know, a much smaller request.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I think in the discussions for establishing 800 square feet, the initial discussions in the town was for something that just met the statute, 750, initially. And through some presentation based upon design, we would increase it to 800 because we thought it was more feasible, you know, in terms of working.
Well, I'll tell you, I had a house that was 800 square feet, and it served us well. We had our kids in there, we hosted family, Thanksgiving dinners with 25 people, you know. And it's not saying that they have to, but I'm just saying that 800 isn't as small as somebody might think it is.
No, it's not.
All right, I think I got this.
Shoot.
I hereby make a motion to deny the variance request for the property located at 4 Pasture Drive, Goffstown, New Hampshire, for the following reasons. It is contrary to the public interest, as Goffstown and Goffstown ordinances were compared to other publications and communities, whereas the Goffstown ordinance needs to stand alone. The variance does not observe the spirit of the ordinance because they're requesting a substantial increase of 25% over the accepted zoning law.
Over the,
Over the ordinance.
Yeah,
Over
over the
zoning
ordinance.
ordinance.
Thank you. Because A and B are not met, we cannot find substantial justice be done. Also, the unnecessary hardship requirements do not appear to be established other than that the applicant is emotionally and financially invested prior to obtaining approval.
Second.
Okay, we have the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against or abstaining? 500.
Does the board want to add any additional findings of facts? As you recall, the change to RSA 676(3) requires that notices of decision have a finding of facts, or is the motion have sufficient information?
I think the motion has sufficient information.
That's why it
agree.
took me so long to write it, so.
If you can send that to...
I have to clean it up because now there's typing errors,
Yeah.
so.
Just, can you send it to me for when I do the minutes?
Yep.
That would be great. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Our next application, Richard A. Rabito Jr., applicant owner, seeking a special exception to construct an accessory attached dwelling unit in accordance with section 3.12.8.6 and 5.2 of the Goffstown zoning ordinance. The property is located at 143 Monarch Avenue, map 9, lot 4-43, zoned agricultural. And hello, would you introduce yourselves, tell us who you are?
Sure, I'm Carrie Rubito.
I'm Richard Rubito.
Okay,
This dwelling unit would be for my parents
okay,
who live in Florida and are elderly, and my father has Parkinson's disease, and they were just in the hurricane, and we're trying to get them up here as soon as possible.
okay. Can you tell us a little bit about the plan? What you're going to build? How-
Yeah, accessory dwelling unit. The access from our house is gonna be through our current half bath downstairs. So part of the accessory dwelling unit is gonna be the new half bath for us. So the actual living space of the ADU is 800 square feet. Same thing, I called Derek and I asked him, and when I talked to him on the phone, he said that the stairwell does not count for the.
Because the hallway, the stairwell, and the bathroom are, well, the hallway's shared, but the bathroom is ours. It's because
Right.
we're demolishing our half bathroom to make the entrance, so we need our half bathroom, so it's gonna be in the accessory unit. And the stairwell down to the garage, which we need to put a stair lift for my father because he can't do stairs.
Okay, so the accessory dwelling unit is gonna be downstairs?
No,
No,
this
that-
would be the same thing, it's be a garage with the actual living space above the garage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, in your application, you addressed the criteria for the special exception, and that seems to be all you need. You don't need a variance, right? Because you're meeting all the other requirements. You just need the approval for the special exception to have the ADU because you're gonna meet all the other criteria.
Yes.
Okay. Does the board have any questions?
No?
I actually did have one question. I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Jason?
You had mentioned a second egress from the, there are two, so there's one into our house and then there's one going down to the garage. Did that count as two?
Are they in
areas
the
of
same,
egress?
I'm gonna say geographic location, that's not the right word, but that's all I got, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are
So
they in the
this-
same spot?
They're not exactly the same, but they're close to each other.
One's gonna go into the garage and one's
I
gonna go into our
think-
house.
Because we had talked to the builder, if need be, he said he can put a stairwell going up with like a little, 6x4 deck to get into where the kitchen area
I
is.
think for, I mean, I only really, from my perspective, care that there's two.
Okay.
But I think the building department would care about those other things in the
Yeah.
fire department, right, Derek?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so take care of that.
You were thinking about a second egress, that's all
Yeah.
that matters.
Yeah.
I would leave it up to the building inspector, actually,
Yeah.
to
Does-
okay that. internal stair or an outside
Oh, yeah,
stair?
no, like I said, it's, as long as there's two, it's really all that matters to me. I don't,
Okay.
it's the building department that cares about that.
Thank you.
That's a requirement by building code, they have 2 exits.
Yeah. Anybody else? Questions or comments? I'll take it as no. Do you have anything else you want to add? Just stay put for a minute. I'm going to open the hearing to the public. Does anybody in the public have any questions or comments about this application? Seeing none, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Does the board have any further questions of the applicant before we go into deliberations? One last chance. I'll take that as a no. The board's going into deliberations, and we'll get right back to you.
Great.
Okay. Board?
Ready to motion.
Hmm?
I'm ready to motion.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the special exception for an ADU at 143 Monarch Ave, map 9, lot 4-43, finding that it meets all the requirements as submitted
For granting the special exception.
for granting the exception. For granting the, yeah.
Second, I'll second.
I'll second it.
I think Len already beat you to it. Did you
No,
say?
I was looking
He's-
at Alan.
Oh, okay. All right, so Alan's got it then.
I mean, I will only lift a quote from the previous hearing. It's all about the criteria.
Okay.
Oh,
All right,
and
I'll-
it meets all the criteria, not requirements. Criteria.
Yes, these are all the criteria. Okay, so we have the motion to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against or abstaining? Motion carries. You're good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, our next application is Benchmark LLC applicant and Kimberly Karen owner seeking a special exception to build a single-family home on a pre-existing non-conforming lot that doesn't meet the lot size and road frontage requirement. This concerns section 14.7.3 of the Goffstown zoning ordinance. The applicant is also seeking a variance because the lot has 0.34 acres, whereas section 4.3 requires 2 acres. The applicant also seeks an appeal or request per New Hampshire RSA 674:41 and section 15.3.5 of the Goffstown zoning ordinance to allow the construction on a pre-existing non-conforming lot that was created in 1941 without frontage on a town-maintained road. The property is located off Wallace Road, map 5, lot 92A, zoned agricultural. And who do we have?
Good evening, my name is Joseph Maynard, I'm with Benchmark LLC, I represent the Karens in this application before you tonight. As you discussed, there's a number of things that are required with this. This lot, I just want to point out, was actually before the Zoning Board of Adjustment back in 2005 for the exact same variance that's being requested. After that hearing, there was a discrepancy with the landowner who had the easement that went to this property. And the property ended up in a 4-year court case that ultimately changed the location of where the right-of-way was that went into the property. So we're back here now at this point. That work, when we did the original work in 2005, for the variance was for Peter Bailey. Since that time, Ms. Karen has purchased the lot, and so we're here before you to ask for this special exception and variance to allow the construction of a single-family house on this piece of property. When we look at your criteria, under the ordinance, a special exception can be granted if we meet certain criteria, which I hear the board is big on. And so when we start looking at these items, I think there were 5 items in your list, and the first deals with the specific site is an appropriate location for this use. The property is zoned residential. We're building a residential house on the lot. It's in a residential neighborhood, so therefore it seems to meet the first criteria of your ordinance. Under the second one, the size or frequency of the use will not significantly alter the character of the neighborhood. Again, it's a residential neighborhood, a residential home will be constructed. From a traffic standpoint, it's minimal that you'll see from the generation of the new house that would be on this lot. It's a residential driveway that'll go into the property, and that's a very similar characteristics for this type of neighborhood. When we start going through the rest of your criteria, the lot is of sufficient size to allow adequate and proposed and appropriate facilities for the operation of use. This lot in the 2005, when we were before the board, did receive a septic system approval for the property. There's also been a lot of permitting that was associated with the driveway that goes into the lot. And it does have all the proper permits from state agencies for the construction of the driveway, and the septic plan could be updated pretty easily. The last one deals with location is sufficient size to allow for appropriate buffers to abutting properties. This lot itself, it sits about 500 feet back from Wallace Road. It's surrounded on two sides by the next application that we're here before you on. The other abutter to the east of our site, he was at the planning board meeting. My client has spoken to him a number of times. It's my understanding they have no issues with what we're proposing up here. And the last abutter to this lot is actually the property that has the easement that goes to this. I want to point out that when the courts granted they established the easement that comes from Wallace Road into this property, they actually ended up giving half of that house lot to make the driveway work. That was in the court's decree for the construction of the driveway into this property. We don't need to use half of the lot, but it was something that was brought up at court, and the judges did end up giving us that. The landowner where the easement is on actually appealed it to New Hampshire Supreme Court, and they held the lower court's decision to give us half the lot in order to be able to make this driveway work. The second part of this deals with the variance. So in this lot in particular, it's a lot that was created in 1941. It's 100 by 150 feet in size. The new house that would be constructed on this piece of property would meet all of your building setbacks that are associated with your ordinance. It would meet building coverage under the ordinance is 10%, which would allow up to a 1,500 square foot house. It's not that large of a structure that would be proposed on this piece of property. And like I said, it meets all of the required setbacks associated with the underlying zone of agricultural. I can answer any questions, or I can talk more about any of the criteria if you'd like.
Does the board have any questions?
I just have an observation.
What's that?
This is bigger than most of the lots downtown here.
But it's not downtown.
No, but it was created prior to the adoption of your zoning. So 1941 was when the lot was created. And the easement was actually created in 1941 also that gave access to the property.
So it's a pre-existing.
Pre-existing non-conforming
Yeah.
building lot. So
It's just such a small lot for an agricultural zone that requires 2 acres.
it is, but it's what we have to work with.
I know.
So, yep.
It's really unique.
It's very unique when you look at it.
Just an observation, it's gonna be quite the driveway.
Yeah.
So the driveway, actually, when we did the original permitting in 2005, we met with the fire department and we were allowed a 12% grade to go into this property. The design was done, all the permitting was completed, but like I said, we ended up in court for the next 4 years over this decision. So as we came back to start this process again about a year and a half ago now with the town, fire department now asked for the driveway to meet a 10% grade. So we meet the 10% grade, that's the requirement. We meet the width of the driveway. Everything falls within the dredge and fill permits that were granted and that are still valid on the property. So, you know, the driveway itself will have the proper turnaround at the end that fire department has requested. We meet the grade that the fire department has requested, we meet the roundings that the fire department, so we've done everything we can to meet everybody's rules and regulations on the driveway construction portion of this.
Yeah. Hasn't the driveway construction started?
Driveway construction actually started a number of years ago. The original, they timbered the lot about 5 years ago, 2014.
2012.
Yeah, all right, and so we were before the planning board for a conditional use permit to separate our driveway, or this driveway, from the abutter's driveway, that's the easement. So that was granted last month. Since that time, the dredge and fills will expire in December. My client would like to get the stabilization done on the driveway, so they did start on the driveway and kind of, it was already kind of roughed in, and now they're moving, they moved equipment in, I guess, and they're working on starting the grade so that we can get stabilization before frost, so.
Okay. Questions?
Oh, that driveway's gonna be fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost as bad as mine.
Mine's not very good either. It's steep. I don't know the grade. I'd love to know. But I don't know.
Because they don't want to know.
Yeah, I probably don't. Okay, anybody have questions?
Why didn't you go for a lot line revision to increase the size of this?
So when this originally started, that lot was owned by Mr. Peter Bailey. It was a separate lot, a separate owner, had no relation to my client in any fashion. After the court case, Mr. Bailey talked about selling the property. And so Miss Karen's father wanted to purchase the lot, and he'd live next door to them.
Yeah.
In the ninth hour, he kind of changed his mind. And so my clients purchased, or Miss Karen purchased the lot, more for protection. Like, there's a lot of components to this with the shared driveway and everything. So we wanted to get all of that stuff done with what they had in their own control. You know, a lot line adjustment was kind of discussed. I don't think that property gains anything by doing that. The only gain it would really have would mean I could build a larger house, because now my 10% cap on building coverage would get increased based on that. I can't say it doesn't happen down the road, we do a lot line adjustment, but at this point, we're leaving that lot as a, as it was originally created.
I just noticed the well radius is on there,
Yeah.
2 lots.
Yeah, and you know, from a well radius, the way the state of New Hampshire works on that is when a radius goes over a lot line by more than 5 feet, you need to file a well release form at the Registry of Deeds. So when Mr. Bailey owned this, we recorded that at the Registry of Deeds, so there's a well release form on it. Now, that's not to say that the Karens couldn't put a perpetual easement on the area of the well in the future, so that it would protect whoever buys that house. But, you know, those are all kind of what-ifs down the road with that piece of property. But for now, it is what it is. That work has already been done and recorded at the registry for that well radius.
Okay.
I should have caught it earlier. You'll need to do a vote on regional impact at some point for these
Yes,
applications.
yes.
So, sorry.
It's because I didn't do my homework and pre-prepare my sheet.
We do that.
Okay, so we'll take a quick vote on regional impact for this
I'll
application.
motion of regional impact.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any against or abstaining? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks for the reminder. Okay, any questions for the applicant any further? Okay, then I'm going to see, does the public have any questions or comments on this application? Anybody back there? I'll take that as a no. Then I'm going to close the public hearing, and the board's going to enter deliberations.
You know what, I think I did have a question. The 2005 variance, was that approved? I didn't see it in this. But
My biggest concern going into this, as I was reading, and I drive by that property all the time because I live in that general area, and was the size of the lot in an agricultural zone, because an agricultural zone is supposed to be 2 acres. But for the bit of information that it is a pre-existing from 1941. I guess there's not really a whole lot, that's a big influence there.
That's kind of the entire reason for variances and special exceptions,
Right.
is for stuff like this.
Right.
This is really, really big. I don't want to do the motion for this one. When you guys do it.
Okay, well, there's two. It needs a special exception and a
Yeah,
variance.
that's why I mess up my words.
And you'd also be granting the request under RSA 674-41, as well as section 15.3.5 of the ordinance to allow construction on a lot without frontage.
Okay.
So that needs to be included in the motion if you choose to grant an approval.
Should that be 3 motions?
You can do it as one motion if you'd like.
Along with the special exception or the variance?
Yeah, that's right. I would do, just as it says on your title sheet.
Yeah, 3 at a, the three motions, kind of.
That one has 2. This one has another one.
No, no.
It's a different hearing.
This one has 3. The first one, the third application down, Benchmark LLC, the first of the benchmarks. It's got 3. It's seeking a special exception, then it's seeking a variance because of, special exception because it doesn't meet lot size and road frontage. Then it's seeking the variance because of the .34 acres, and then it also requires relief from RSA 674-41 and section 15.3.5 of the zoning ordinance to allow construction on a pre-existing non-conforming lot created in 1941.
Just a quick question.
I'll second your motion.
Okay, what findings do we want to make to go with that?
Do we have to include that as part of the motion, or can it be separate?
We can
You can
separate
do
it.
it as a separate motion if you'd like.
Oh,
All right, let's take, you want to do the special exception first?
As long as the board, tells me what findings should be included on the notice of decision, as long as it's clear, I think you can have a discussion about findings, and then, amend your motion to do that.
Thanks. This is a whole new procedure thing, right?
Yes, it is. Well, I would say with the special exception, where it doesn't, it's non-conforming, pre-existing non-conforming, so there's not a whole lot we can do about that.
And it's still agricultural.
And it's still agricultural, yes. It's an appropriate location for a home. Consistent with the town's current master plan. Boy, did I mess up on this typing. I wrote youth instead of use. Size, frequency, or use will not significantly alter the character of the neighborhood. I don't think it will. It's just, it is a small lot, but it's also quite a ways back from the road. So, I mean, I'm gonna just keep falling back on the size of the lot. The size of the lot is tremendously small compared to the 2 acres required in the agricultural zone. However, because it was a pre-existing non-conforming lot, it's not gonna, I don't think it's gonna alter the character of the neighborhood.
I mean, for what it is, it wouldn't.
No, for what it is and for the use,
Yeah.
it won't. It's a residential use. And I don't think it's gonna create a hazard to vehicles or pedestrians in a manner that can't be ameliorated. They'll have their driveway to come in and out of, they'll have, Wallace Road is kind of busy road, however, it's like, I don't know, it's just probably 2 cars, 3 cars maybe, if they have older children or something like that. It's just a couple of cars that any house would have. The proposed location is of sufficient size to allow for adequate and appropriate facilities for the proper operation of the use. The applicant's representative has said that it's gonna fit the house, and they've got the well radius, and they've got the septic design, right? You said the septic design. He's got all of those that are appropriately gonna fit. And therefore, that does make it of sufficient size. Oh, wait a minute, and sufficient buffers, appropriate buffers for this use.
And it complies with 14.7 non-conforming lots of our zoning ordinance.
Right. 14.7?
Yes.
3? Just 14.7. 14.7.
Okay. .7. The lot doesn't conform with present size, frontage, or other dimensional standards of the zoning district, and the present owner does not own and has no contract option or other enforceable legal right to acquire any adjoining property to the extent necessary to make the lot conforming with present standards or is prevented by law from doing so. The date of creation of a lot shall be, this is 14.7.2.
Yep.
The date of the lot shall be considered established by its most recent legal and conforming change in configuration by parcel area reduction, consolidation, land division, or other official action if such was required. I guess my concern there is in 14.7.1.3, the lot does not conform with present size, frontage, or other dimensional standards of the zoning district, and the present owner does not own and has no contract option or other enforceable legal right to acquire any adjoining property to the extent necessary to make the lot conforming with present
That
standards.
is correct.
Or prevented by law to do so. Don't they own the lot right next door to it?
It's different ownership,
Oh, different ownership?
if you look at how we noticed.
Oh, that's right, because Mrs. Karen owns one and the, okay. All right, so it does meet section 14.7. So,
Do
that's,
we have a motion?
that was my motion.
Ellen seconded it.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion, any against or abstaining? Motion carries. Okay, now we have to go on to the, no, we have to go into the variance. That was a special exception. Variance was for, because the lot has .34 acres, whereas section 4.3 requires 2 acres. Not contrary to the public interest, spirit of the ordinance, granting substantial justice, property values, and unnecessary hardship.
Again, I think 14.7
Applies.
applies. So, based on that finding, I will make a motion to approve the variance for Benchmark LLC and Kimberly Karen for the property on Wallace Road, map 5, lot 92A, to grant the variance where, because they have a lot
Are
of
you-
point.
92A or 89, are we on the second?
No, we're
No.
still
You're on
the first one.
92A right now.
Yeah.
92A. So, because the lot has a third of an acre, whereas section 4.3 requires 2 acres.
Okay. Can we add that it would be an unnecessary hardship if the ordinance is enforced?
I think that would be fair
Because
addition.
that would make the lot basically useless.
Yes.
Surrounding properties would not be diminished? I would
Correct.
say that they would not be.
I would say that it is a unique property in that space.
I also
So-
think because of the uniqueness of the property, substantial justice would be done. And the same with, not contrary to the public interest, spirit of the ordinance.
It's within the spirit of the ordinance because now it complies with part of our ordinance,
Right,
14.7.
correct.
Yes, okay. 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 So we have the motion. Did somebody second it?
I'll second it.
Alan, all in favor?
Aye.
Any against or abstaining? Motion carries. So we have that one. That one is done. Then our next application is, again, it's Benchmark LLC.
Wait, don't we still have to do the?
Oh,
appeal
I'm sorry,
request?
yes, thank you. The next one is, and they're appealing or requesting per RSA 674-41 and section 1535 of the Goffstown zoning ordinance to allow the construction on a pre-existing non-conforming lot that was created in 1941 without frontage on a town-maintained road.
I make a motion to grant the appeal or request as written. I don't think we need to put any additional information on that because it's not a variance, it's not a special exception.
Do we need to justify it?
I think the discussion this evening
Justifies it?
should be fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
1535, construction on a lot without street frontage.
So I motion to accept the appeal request.
Okay,
Accept or grant.
okay.
I don't know if we can grant, but,
Yeah, we would grant the appeal.
okay, of the ordinance to allow construction on a pre-existing non-conforming lot.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against or abstaining? Okay, seeing none or hearing none, motion carries. Okay, our next application, Benchmark LLC. Applicant and Randy and Kimberly Karen, owners, are seeking a special exception to build a single-family home on a pre-existing non-conforming lot that doesn't meet the road frontage requirement. Sounds familiar. This concerns section 14.7.3 of the Goffstown zoning ordinance. The applicant also seeks an appeal or request per New Hampshire RSA 674-41 and section 15.3.5 of the Goffstown zoning ordinance to allow the construction on a pre-existing non-conforming lot that was created in 1941 without frontage on a town-maintained road. Property is located off of Wallace Road. And I'm going to entertain a motion for regional impact, please.
Move no regional impact.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against or abstaining? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0 to 0. Okay, you're back.
I am.
You never left.
Nope.
Okay, you want to tell us about this one?
Sure.
No, hold on. I'm going to stop you just for a second. We have read the special exception criteria that your responses. So if you want, you can elaborate on them. You can read them if you choose, but they are already in the record because you've
Yep.
submitted them to us.
Yep.
So you don't have to review them if you don't want to.
No, that's fine, to expedite things, I appreciate that.
Okay.
I can just say with this lot, the only difference between this and the other lot was, they were both created in 1941, but the Karens actually purchased this lot from the town of Goffstown. It went up for auction at a closed bid. They ended up winning the bid in 2003. As the other property that we just discussed, this also benefited by that easement. The easement ended up in a lengthy court decision, and ultimately what we have today, where the driveway is what was granted. Same thing as the last lot, private driveway be shared with the last lot we just discussed. The only difference is the Karens actually did purchase this lot from the town in 2003. So.
Okay. Does the board have any questions? In this application, they're seeking just the special exception and the appeal. The RSA. Okay. Well, this property is going to meet all setback requirements.
All setback requirements, yeah.
Okay. And the proposed driveway is the result of the court's decision.
The location of it is based upon the court's decision.
Right.
The grade of it is based upon the current fire department regulations.
And at 10%.
10% with a hammerhead at the end.
Okay. So they can turn around.
Yep.
Okay, good. How long is the driveway?
Something in my head says about 800 feet. So it's about 600 to the lot we discussed prior, and then it's another couple hundred feet.
Okay.
It's like mine.
And what's the size of the lot? It is?
It's about 5 acres in size.
5 acres in size,
A
okay.
little more than 5 acres.
Oh, I can see your brain ticking.
You can?
Yeah. Or hear it. I can see it in your eyes. What's your question?
I just
Or
compared it to my driveway.
Oh.
Yeah.
Just as bad.
Yeah, it's straight, you know, it's not like you have to switch back or anything to get up the hill. It's pretty much a straight,
It's great for skateboarding.
yeah, so, yeah. I gave that up a long time ago.
Okay. Does the board have any questions about the application and
Just a quick question.
what's that?
This 27.7 setback, is that the rear?
So we consider that a side setback.
Is it side?
I would consider that a side. The line,
Like
so
what
the
on the
line,
road?
I'm trying to see where so that's the north, everything along the east boundary here runs pretty much parallel to Wallace Road. So again, frontage is usually where your frontage access is from. I know the driveway is coming in from that way, but normally it's related to the road, and it's also related to which way the house sits, where this is a little bit kitty corner. I think it's reasonable to say that that is the side property line.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Okey-doke.
I have a question on this cover sheet to the plan, or this first page of the plan. It says assumed boundary location?
Yeah, so that boundary line on that side, the court never, I guess, confirmed us the location of it. We did run boundary on this recently, and the line work that we're holding on this plan matches what we found for physical evidence out there for a
Okay.
boundary. So,
Okay.
yep.
Okay.
Questions?
Close public?
Huh? No, I haven't even,
We-
I just, before we go on to the public.
Gotcha. All right, I have no more questions.
You do?
No.
Okay. Judy? Alan? Well, okay. Does anybody in the audience have any questions or comments that they want to make on this application? No? Okay. Then we are going to close the public hearing, and the board is going to enter deliberations. Special exception, and then the RSA 674-41, along with zoning ordinance section 1535. So the specific site is appropriate for such use, being consistent with the town's master plan? I would say so.
Single-family homes are allowed in agricultural.
What's that?
Single-family homes are allowed in.
Single-family homes are allowed. I mean, it's 5 acres or so. It's significant. The size or frequency of the use will not significantly alter the character of the neighborhood. No, because with a single-family home, that's what's up there, basically.
Chances are you'll never see it.
Chances are, you're right. The use will not create a nuisance or hazard to vehicles or pedestrians in a manner that cannot be ameliorated.
It's a single-family home on
It's a
Wallace
single-family
Road.
home, yeah, exactly. It's gonna blend in with all the others. The proposed location is of sufficient size to allow for adequate and appropriate facilities for the proper operation of the use. At 5 acres, I think that probably is, and
Submitted proof for it too.
yes. And to allow, and the buffers, sufficient size to allow for appropriate buffers. And
Setback.
yes, and it's gonna meet all the setbacks, it has significant room for that, I would say.
Okay, so based on those findings, I motion to grant the special exception to build a single-family home on a pre-existing non-conforming lot that does not meet road frontage requirements at property on Wallace Road on map 5, lot 89.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any against or abstaining? None? Motion carries. Okay, on to the special, or the appeal request from the RSA and section 15.3.5. The construction on a lot without frontage. Anybody?
Are we having a stare down, Lynn? I motion to grant. I motion to grant the request to allow the construction on a pre-existing non-conforming lot that was created in 1949 without frontage on a town-maintained road.
Okay, so your motion is to
To
grant
grant the request.
the appeal from New Hampshire RSA 674-41 in section
Yes.
15.3.5?
Yes.
Okay. And do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any against or abstaining? Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Watching you, Lynn.
You're
Okay.
doing such a bang-up job tonight, Jason.
I almost never talk
Oh.
much.
Okay, our next application, Joseph Herman and Brad Klutnick, applicant owner seeking a variance to allow for a 160 square foot addition to an existing single-family home that will not meet the front and rear setback requirements. The addition will be 16 feet from the front property, whereas 25 feet is required, and the addition will be 8.7 feet from the rear property, whereas 30 feet is required. This concerns section 4.3 of the dimensional requirements of the Goffstown zoning ordinance. The property is located at 51 Cove Street, map 21, lot 78, zoned residential 2. Welcome. Would you introduce yourselves, please?
I am Joe Herman.
Did you say Joe Herman?
Joe Herman, yes ma'am.
And,
Brad Kluchnik.
okay. And what can you tell us? The same thing applies to you as I told the applicant before you.
I'm
Regional
doing the
impact.
regional impact.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just saw my
Okay,
note.
excuse me just for a minute. Can I have a motion for regional
I
impact, please?
moved on regional impact.
Second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against or abstaining? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay. The same thing applies to your application as to the one previous. If you don't want to review the variance criteria that's in your application, you don't have to because it's already part of the record. If you want to elaborate on it or something, or explain something about it, you're welcome to do that, so that choice is yours.
Well, I guess just explain basically what we currently have is a small little camp-style cabin house down in a river community that is currently, I would say, non-conforming because all the houses down there are basically on top of each other. We're trying to just expand, you say the side, but I call it the front of the house, just 8 feet out by 20, just to make some more living space in the house. And in order to do that, there's no way that we would be able to fit any of the setbacks, we really wouldn't be able to do any expansion at all on the property.
Okay.
We've spoken to all of our abutters, and they don't have any problems with it. I think it's just going to add value to the neighborhood. It's going to be an updated house. We haven't really done anything with it since we've purchased it. We've been there for 17 years.
20 years
20 years.
in January.
We've had a new roof and some windows put in, but we just kind of want to make a little bit more living space in the house.
Okay.
And where we're expanding, on the side of the property, our abutter is technically the road. Everyone was notified of our abutters, that there's an abutter up the hill. And the other property that we're going towards, he doesn't have any issue. And somewhere on the left is, I'm not even sure what it is, but it's maybe like a garage or a shed kind of dwelling. And then our immediate neighbors next to us, they don't have any issues with us with the expanding of the footprint.
Okay. That's good to know.
I don't think they're here. They might be.
All right. Does the board have any questions? Don't everybody speak at once. Oh, how about, did we already do, we did regional impact. Good.
Help me to orient myself, because I'm not too clear from the way it's sketched out. If I'm standing in front of your house on Cove Street, the expansion is going to go from which end of in which direction does the expansion go?
If you're standing on Cove Street and you're looking at the house, the expansion is going to go to the right.
Towards 55 Cove Street?
Correct. It's really the only way you can. Towards the rear of the house, they're probably 10 feet away. The other people are probably maybe 8 feet away.
And
So
then
really
we
the
have
only
the
way,
road.
and the road is on the other side. so
Their
it's
property
really-
line is 10 feet or 8 feet, is that what you mean?
No, their house.
Their house?
Their house.
From your property?
From my
line?
house.
From your house?
Yeah.
Property line.
From the property line or from the structure itself?
Property line.
Our neighbor, I call it behind us, is, I'd say, like 15 feet, the house. Our house are basically on the property lines where we are.
Okay.
The three houses, when you come down Bay and Cove goes this way, and there's a little triangle of three houses right there, and Anya lives here, and she's I'd say 15 feet from our house. Our other neighbor over on this side, I'd say, is maybe 10 feet from the house, and our road, the road is maybe 10 feet from the house, so we really only have the one way to expand towards 55. It's the lake neighborhood, everyone's kind of on top of each other down there.
Right.
The house you're talking about, looking at your map, here would be the one at 50 Bay Street that is directly behind your house?
Correct. Correct, yeah, and you can I don't know if you're looking at the same map that I have, but you can see like the 50 Bay Street, the corner of their house is basically on the lot line. And doing with the GIS measuring, like I said, they're like maybe 10 feet from our house. So really, yeah, we would have to expand.
We would like to go this way.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
And I see also from your sketch, you're basically going to incorporate the finished porch that's
Correct.
part of the house
Yes.
Correct.
into your expansion.
Yes, sir.
The fact that they get that close to the neighbors doesn't require them to do anything special for fire protection at all. The basic code.
That's
It's close.
a tight neighborhood to say the
Yeah,
least.
it's a tight neighborhood, but we, like you said, we've been there for 20 years. It's very quiet down there. Everyone, we all get along, we all watch out for each other. So it's a nice little neighborhood down there.
I don't have any questions.
No questions? Do you have a fever?
Do I have a fever?
You have no questions. You always have questions.
I don't have
Are you
questions.
sick? Right?
Judy?
That's it, I'm not asking
No
any more.
questions? No?
I like it when you do.
Ready to make a motion?
You're ready to make a motion?
Wow.
Okay,
Do we
go.
have public comment yet?
Oh, no, that's right, duh.
So there's only one motion necessary?
Hold on.
Okay, hold on, we
No.
didn't do public comment yet.
See, now I have
And
to
we
ask
didn't-
a
Oh,
question.
yes, of course. Sorry.
Hold on, we gotta do public comment. Is there anybody in the public back there who has comments to make? No, okay, then I'm gonna close the public hearing portion and guess the board can enter deliberations.
Go for it.
I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Okay, the motion is to approve, let me get this straight here. Joseph Herman and Brad Klucknick, the variance to allow 160 square foot addition to an existing single-family home that does not meet the front and rear setback requirements.
Do you wanna
And-
specify the distances?
Yes.
You may not want to.
Uh,
May not want to.
It works where I
Because
live.
the property lines are crazy down there.
I think I would offer as your staff that Judy's,
Motion is sufficient.
yes.
Okay,
I have 18 inches on one corner that touches my neighbor's boundary.
Oh, yeah.
For
wow.
an idea of placement of property and angles.
Oh, yeah.
Very
Okay,
hard to describe.
all right. Well, we will drop it, we'll stop it there.
I'll
Okay.
second the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any against or abstaining?
Thank you.
Hearing none, motion carries.
Yes,
You're good?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
you're right. Do you get a water break? No.
Huh?
Is there water anywhere around here?
We have a water butler upstairs. Let me go,
We can take a 5-minute break.
take a 5-minute break.
Yeah, the board's gonna take a
Can I
5-minute
go
recess
up and
before we
get
get
a
I
into
might be able to.
our last
source the bottle
application.
for you real
It's
quick.
set up.
Oh, okay,
But
thank
you
you.
can stop right there.
right, we are back to business. The last application of the night, USA, and thank you for waiting. USA Insulation of Southern New Hampshire applicant and G-Town Compound. LLC owners are seeking a use variance to allow for a contracting business with a residential within a residential 2 district, which is not permitted per section 3.11.1.11.
That's I.
I, yeah. Principal uses of the Goffstown zoning ordinance. The properties are located at 560 Rockland Avenue, map 15, lot 34, zone commercial, and Woodbine Street, map 15, lot 33, split zoned residential 2 and commercial. The applicant is also seeking a special exception under section 14.7.3 to allow the development of a non-conforming lot, map 15, lot 33. Lot 33 is located off Woodbine Avenue, a town paper road, not town maintained, and does not meet the road frontage requirement per section 4.3 of the Goffstown zoning ordinance. So can I have a motion for regional impact, please?
No regional impact.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Alan?
I'm all in favor.
Okay. Motion, any against or abstaining? Hearing none, motion carries.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
We did notice for a special exception to develop a non-conforming lot. We had to get the notice into the newspaper. And we did that as safety, and I think the applicant's representation can speak to that a little bit, but I believe they're going to be merging the lots, so that special exception would be a moot point. So, but we had to get the notice into the newspaper to meet the 7-day clear deadline, so.
Okay, so
That's
they
why-
won't need the special exception, they're gonna merge the 2 lots?
Correct, correct.
Okay,
So that's why that is included in the notice for tonight's meeting.
so there, we don't have to address the special exception.
Correct.
Okay. That's good to know. Okay, if you would introduce yourself and tell us what you're doing.
Sure. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Chad Brannon. I'm a civil engineer with Fieldstone Land Consultants, and I'll be representing USA Insulation of Southern New Hampshire and G-Town Compound LLC this evening. As you stated, Madam Chair, USA Insulation of Southern New Hampshire is the applicant, and G-Town Compound LLC is the owner of both properties. If you don't mind, Madam Chair, staff asked me to bring some full-size copies of the plans to distribute to the members. I'd be happy to hand those out before I start with the presentation if possible.
That's fine.
Hey, I don't need my glasses.
Yeah, we have made no changes to the plan, but we've just added some color for ease of presentation.
Do you mind sharing so I can keep one?
Yeah, no. Okay.
This project proposes to develop parcel 15-33 into a commercial development. That parcel consists of 0.826 acres in size with 360 feet of frontage along Woodbine Street, which is a paper street. As you can see on the plan, the town zone line, which is highlighted in pink on that plan, does run through the subject property with the commercial zone to the east and residential zoning to the west. The site is currently vacant, but does have a gravelled clear area, which is positioned on the east side of the site, just west of the existing structure, which is highlighted in blue, one of the existing structures on the adjacent property. The site is currently vacant other than that improved area. The subject parcel and the adjacent lot, lot 15-34, are owned by the same entity, and as was stated, if we're successful this evening, we would be proposing to merge the 2 properties for a number of reasons, which we'll kind of touch on in this presentation. There are existing improvements on the adjacent property, which is parcel 1534. That consists of 2 existing structures. The structure along Rockland Avenue is a duplex structure with some garages. And then as you come down Woodbine Street on the north side, there is a detached structure which is currently occupied by U.S. Insulation of Southern New Hampshire. They currently run their operation out of that building. And as you can see, that building kind of straddles the boundary of both of those properties. There's the western portion of the building actually does extend onto the back parcel, which would be parcel 1533. So it would make sense if we're successful this evening in obtaining approval for the construction of a 4,800 square foot commercial building on the rear lot for the expansion of USA Insulation of Southern New Hampshire, that we merge these properties, as it doesn't make a lot of sense for uses to span over property boundaries. So we would be proposing to do that. Taking a look at the plan that we have before you, we have positioned the proposed 4,800 square foot building on the subject property. We've honored the residential setbacks for that building, meaning we're holding, even though we're seeking a use variance, we are proposing to meet all the setbacks that are within that zone. So we'd be adhering to 15-foot setback to the, to the sideline. And we've positioned that building really as much forward on that site as possible, with the intent of not proposing any further development on this property to the rear. So if you work your way west from the proposed building here, there's a drainage swale that runs down through the property in this location here. There are some jurisdictional wetlands in this location here, and then the property does move or slope upward, and there is believed to be some upland areas in the back. We would be proposing with this application that the remainder of the property be restricted, no further development, and that would be consistent with the surrounding residential properties that are really positioned more to the west on this of this property. And if you take a look at this, and there was actually a zoning map included in the submission, it shows that all of the property on the east side of the site, certainly, and along the, I guess it would be the west side of Rockland Avenue, is in the commercial zone. And that commercial zone does wrap along the center line of Rosemont Street. There's a hardware store, I believe, just situated on the north side of Rosemont Street that is captured in that commercial zone as well. So the access to this site is through a commercial zone. So we feel that the proposal for this project is consistent with the surrounding areas, meaning we would be taking access off of a commercial area into a commercial zone. Woodbine Street is currently a paper street, but it's utilized by the restaurant, which is situated just to the south of the site here. The parcel out behind the restaurant is actually, I believe, leased by the restaurant and used for outdoor seating and entertainment, so that's a commercial use as well. So our closest use would be commercial, so we'd certainly be compatible in that regard. But nonetheless, we do need a use variance with this application, for this proposal, so we have submitted the application with the 5 criteria. And if, Madam Chair, if the board doesn't have any questions at this time, I would just kind of go through the criteria, touching on some of the high points, and try to answer any questions that the board may have.
Okay.
So taking a look at the first criteria, granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest, because granting this variance, in our opinion, would not be contrary to the public interest, as the proposed commercial development would be located in close proximity to other permitted commercial uses and mixed-use properties. As I stated earlier, The adjacent lot 1534 is a mixed-use lot with residential and commercial components. To the south, lot 15-2 is currently a restaurant, and 15-3 is utilized by the restaurant for outdoor dining and entertainment. Granting this variance would focus the commercial uses in the area to all utilize Woodbine Street. Additionally, the existing vegetation along the perimeter of the site would be maintained, would allow for providing similar visual appearances to the neighborhood and screening for abutting properties. And one thing I didn't touch on is this commercial building that we're proposing would have all of its access on the south side of the building, meaning, all of the access would be from Woodbine Street. There would be no doors along the back side of the building. It would simply be, maybe a window. And we are in receipt of an email from one of the abutting properties requesting that we maybe do some additional landscaping or buffering along the residential boundary in that area. And we would not be opposed to doing that. We haven't contemplated that with this submission, but certainly we thought that might be more of a site plan item, but we would be happy to do that if the board felt that that would be an appropriate condition this evening. Granting this variance would not be contrary to the public interest, as this project would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or threaten the health, safety, or general welfare of the public. Moving on to criteria number 2, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed because the intent of the commercial district is to provide for village-scaled commercial service and similar uses in areas that are or are anticipated to be served by municipal utilities, and where access is available from arterial streets or collector streets. This site is unique in that it does not have frontage technically on a Class 5 road, but yet only on a paper street. All other uses accessing Woodbine Street currently are commercial or mixed use. The location is ideal for a commercial use since it is located nearby to other commercial uses. And in fact, this proposal is a proposal to expand the existing commercial use and allow a growing business to remain in town and to thrive on land that they own. The properties are serviced by municipal utilities, so certainly meet the intent of the underlying zoning. And Woodbine Street currently does not get any residential traffic, so we would not be integrating, commercial and residential traffic. We would really be proposing a use that's consistent with how the properties currently function. For those reasons, this proposal will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or threaten the health, safety, or general welfare of the public. And as such, we believe that granting the variance would observe the spirit and intent of the ordinance. Moving on to number 3, granting the variance would do substantial justice because granting this variance would allow the landowner to reasonably utilize parcel 1533 as a commercial lot with the commercial components favoring the west portion of the lot closest to the commercial zone that currently bisects the property. Granting this variance would do substantial justice by utilizing the lot to its reasonable potential without negatively impacting surrounding properties. The proposed building is needed to allow for an existing business to expand on site. That business is USA Insulation of Southern New Hampshire. The expansion is ideally situated on the site as it will be appropriately screened and provide appropriate buffering to adjacent residential properties. As stated before, the property will maintain access off of Woodbine Street and Rockland Ave, which is in the commercial district, so we believe that is consistent. So we do not believe that a denial of this variance request would be a benefit to the public, or in other words, we don't believe that there would be any apparent gain to the general public by denying this application. Approving this proposal would allow, again, USA Insulation of Southern New Hampshire to remain on site and to address a growing need in the community for their services. Number 4, the values of surrounding properties would not be diminished because the proposed development will be located again in a position that's really not viewable from the adjacent right-of-way, certainly Rockland Ave. And we've orientated the building so that it'll provide greatest buffering and separation to the adjacent residential properties. Again, meeting the underlying zoning setbacks, and also we are willing to augment those buffer areas with additional landscaping and fencing as appropriate. The building itself is primarily situated within an area on site that is currently cleared, and we feel the district will remain essentially unchanged because the majority of the improvements will lie within existing improved area on the site. Abutting lots 15-2, 15-3, and 15-34, as I stated previously, are commercial or mixed uses and are located within the commercial district, at least partially, and therefore won't be negatively impacted or affected by the proposed development. The wetlands on site and the woodland area to the eastern portion of the site would be left undisturbed, and we would be willing to place restrictions on the remainder of the property that no future development would take place there. So that would provide an existing forested buffer area to a good portion of the residential properties along the western portion of the site. The proposed building, again, will meet all dimensional standards and have access only on the south side of the site, and there will not be any activity on the remaining sides that would create any issues for adjacent residential properties. There will also be no impacts by noise or light pollution, which we would ultimately address if we're successful this evening through the planning board, but I do want to touch on that as we've put a lot of thought into the layout and positioning of the building for this property. For all of these reasons, we do not believe that the proposed commercial development would have any negative impacts on the value of surrounding properties. And frankly, to the contrary, it's been our experience that new development, certainly cleanup of the property and revitalization of the property will typically yield positive impacts on surrounding property values. And finally, the last criteria is number 5. Demonstrate that literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. In Part A, owing to the special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship because, and then number 1, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property because this application and the subject properties we do believe are quite unique and they do possess special conditions. Taking a look at tax map parcel 1533, there are definitely conditions that do distinguish it from other properties in the area. The site is unique in that it's positioned really in 2 zones. In fact, the zone line does bisect the property or go through the property, splitting it into a residential 2 and commercial district. It also only has frontage on a paper street, Woodbine Street, which is used for parking and access by the adjacent properties, which would be parcel 1534 on the north side of Woodbine Street, and then parcel 15-2 and 15-3, which are currently utilized as a commercial property as well. The general public purpose of the ordinance in the zoning districts is to have residential properties located in close proximity to each other without industrial and commercial properties disrupting the character and appeal necessarily of those areas. And where this property takes access through the commercial zone, through Woodbine Street, we would consider that another special condition where it really feels that the appropriate use would be a commercial use, and so we believe it's a reasonable use to expand that commercial component as long as we're doing it, responsibly and in close proximity to that zone line, which is exactly what we're proposing with this development. Denying this variance would result in an unnecessary hardship by restricting the use for the lot that really is ideally situated for commercial development, in our opinion. Improvements to this property will improve the neighborhood, the tax base for the town, and the building is positioned to help improve existing buffering to neighboring residential properties. Other special conditions consist of the existing structure that's located on parcel 1534 that actually straddles the boundary line. And so we think that it makes the most sense to merge the properties, which would really result in both properties being a commercial use, but yet favoring the commercial portion of the site, meaning the east portion of the site. Granting this variance will allow, again, an existing business to remain and grow in town, providing a service to the local community. And for these reasons, we do not believe that a fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to this property. Number 2 of the hardship criteria is the proposed use is a reasonable one, and I think I've really touched on that in my presentation, but I'd be happy to elaborate or answer any questions that the board may have. And certainly we've listed a number of items speaking to the reasonableness of this proposal in our opinion, and we look forward to trying to answer any questions that the board may have at this time.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions of the applicant?
Why do you look at me first? I do. So are you saying that all access for this property is going to be through Woodbine Street, so you'll be closing all of the access on Rockland Ave?
So the access, Woodbine Street intersects with Rockland Ave.
Right, so there's currently, if you look, right, there's the one-story garage and the two-story apartment building. There's currently driveways and stuff that go into that. Are those going to be blocked off?
We would not be removing the driveways for the multifamily home along Rockland Ave, but we would be utilizing Woodbine Street for the new building. And this building here, which is currently occupied by USA Insulation, utilizes Woodbine Street currently. So we would still be utilizing Woodbine Street. That's a great question. I appreciate you asking so I could clarify that.
Did you say that the proposal for this commercial lot is an expansion of the business that's already on lot 1534?
That's correct.
So it's going to be an expansion of that, what did you say, insulation?
Yes,
an
USA
expansion of that in-
Insulation currently occupies this building, and they currently park, a number of their trucks on site out in the back now. But because of the equipment that they have in the trucks, it needs to really be in heated space. So they're proposing a building here that would allow them to park their trucks inside.
So that building would basically be a garage for their vehicles?
That's correct.
What kind of vehicles?
It's box trucks where they have they store the insulation product inside.
How big?
They're about 30 feet, with 25 to 30 feet in length.
Yeah, the cab's 20 feet, and the box is 20 feet, and the cab is like 4 feet.
Right, so about 25 feet in length.
Okay.
And the goal would be to, you know, to be able to park, you know, a couple in tandem in that building, which is part of the reason for the dimensions.
Anybody else? What? Alan?
How tall is this building gonna be?
The building, I think it's, was it 25 and 30 feet tall at the most?
Yeah, at the most.
You know, so it would meet any height requirements, and it would be designed,
No higher than the building out front, I would imagine.
How high is that?
About 32 feet.
The adjacent lots on Rosemont, those houses are pretty close to the property line, are they not?
the adjacent homes on Rosemont, I mean, with the exception of these homes here, are actually positioned a little bit further away. I did bring just a kind of a printout of the
GIS?
GIS map, yeah.
Thank you. It looks like the house at, second house in looks pretty close to the property line. That's what you're building.
1537.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's that little old man that lives right across from the hardware store.
Yeah,
And the hardware store parks some of their stuff during the day.
yes,
On his lawn.
yeah.
So when he goes, they have first rights to his house once he passes. He's gonna stay there till he passes.
Yeah, and we've seen
And so,
the adjacent lot here for a variance. Terani. Terajani,
Yeah.
we've seen those folks here.
right, and so I would just say that along this line, we're meeting the underlying setback, which is 15 feet. And we would be, willing to, do some landscaping or, fencing along that line as well. But we would meet the setback, and the activity on the lot would be on the south side, over here. So the building would actually provide additional buffering than what exists to the home that you're inquiring about. And I don't believe this email is from that gentleman, but we were just given an email from one of the abutters, and I don't believe it was from them. But.
Yes, he wants it to, the one that says he wants it to be included into the public record? Is that the one you're talking about?
For Mrs. Trelawney.
Okay, I'm gonna read that letter into the record, so it is there.
Okay.
And it says, in regards to USA Insulation seeking a use variance, I've spoken with several of the abutters residing on the Rosemont Street side of the property. We don't oppose the proposed use of the lot, but ask that our concerns are heard and entered into the public record. As residential abutters to a commercial development, we ask that some considerations be made so our neighborhood maintains its character. Can the warehouse be aesthetically pleasing? Can a barrier be created between their commercial and our residential zones to mitigate sight and noise, such as natural plantings or fence? Is it reasonable to expect a limit on early morning heavy equipment operation to after 7 a.m. and end by 6 p.m., or whatever is typical in a mixed-use area? The area in question abuts vital drainage infrastructure that was installed at the junction of the applicant's property, 13 Rosemont, 15 Rosemont. Prior to this drainage infrastructure, the lowland area of Rosemont Street, primarily Mr. Lunderville's and Auburn Hardware, would routinely experience significant flooding. Can we expect this drainage system to be preserved? Again, we're not in opposition to USA Insulation. We trust the ZBA and Planning Board. We trust the ZBA and Planning Board in this issue. And he thanks the board, thanks everyone.
Right, and if you don't mind, Madam Chair, can I address some of those concerns?
Please do.
I did have an opportunity to review this with our client. They have no objections to the recommended hours of operation. They have no objections to doing some kind of augmenting of, the landscaping and talking about, some aesthetic improvements to the building, and working with the abutter, which is, and come to find out, this is the abutter, I believe, that you're inquiring about. It's this gentleman here. So it's, I think that.
No, it's not.
It's
the next one,
It's this-
lot 38.
It's this one here, I'm
Yep.
sorry. Yeah, you're right. So this particular abutter would have all the vegetation would be maintained, because we're gonna restrict future development in the back. We're gonna maintain the existing drainage swale that comes through the property, which was one of his concerns. And certainly, you know, it's our responsibility in working through a site plan approval, if we're successful before this board, to ensure that the property appropriately mitigates any stormwater, you know, generated from the site. And so we would definitely be doing that and have no issues if that was something the board wanted to condition.
If this were approved, they'd go to the planning board anyway, correct?
Yes.
Well, the planning board would take care of the fencing, the noise, and all that stuff. That's
Right.
not up our
Yeah,
bailiwick here.
it seems to me most of what he is asking for there are site plan review issues.
That is correct.
Right.
And not zoning issues.
I have just one concern, and that is things like storage containers in the street, dumpsters and trailers in the driveway. And I'd be surprised if why don't they take and extend Woodbine so it becomes a public way?
Well, it's a
Because they can't park vehicles in it. They
So
can't, you can drive across it, but you can't do anything with it.
So it's interesting, you bring up a lot of excellent points, and I will share, it's my understanding that the neighboring lot 15-2 does have an agreement through the selectmen to do some parking of vehicles on the southern side of the Woodbine right-of-way, because it's a paper, technically a paper street. Now, any of the structures like the storage container, you know, the trailers and such, those would all go away because it would be addressed through, you know, building this building. There's a, you know, additional space needs. So anything related to my client's use of that right away would go into the proposed building. The dumpster that you're seeing is actually a dumpster for the property on the south side of a Woodbine street. It's not a dumpster associated with this project.
Did you say that all the trucks need to be stored inside because of what they have inside of them?
They
Or
can't
just
freeze.
so you'll have a fleet of trucks that'll be driving down Woodbine going into the new proposed building, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
They'll be backing in. Currently,
Yeah,
they park
backing
in the
in.
gravel parking lot back there.
Oh, okay.
So they would
Okay.
now be inside a building, sheltered, and not be outside, you know, so it would be an improvement.
How many vehicles
6, 8?
daily? Multiple times a day?
No. Once in the morning, once at night.
Question on it. Looking at your plan here, is it the idea here to truncate Woodbine Street at the corner of that lot 15? Or, because if I remember looking at the GIS map on this, I believe Woodbine continues and takes a sharp turn to, I guess that would be the south there. So does that truncate the paper street?
The people in the
Yes,
back are
no.
shaking their head yes.
It goes to Glenridge.
We would not be truncating Woodbine Street with this proposal. There is a jurisdictional wetland area that's located here that would really, in our professional opinion, prevent Woodbine, the connection from ever happening. So the likelihood of this being extended and connecting to this neighborhood up here, which I believe is Elmwood, or could be Glenridge.
Glenridge.
It's Glenridge here, is very, very unlikely, but this project would not hinder that from happening. We would be essentially extending the access on Woodbine within the right-of-way that fronts the property.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else have questions?
I'm good.
Or any more questions, Judy? Jason? None? I'm going to see if there's anybody in the audience who has questions or comments that they'd like to make. Okay, would you mind stepping back or sitting back, taking your things so that the guests in the back can come forward and if you wouldn't mind telling us your name and your address, please?
I am Edward Baudet. I own 568 Rockland Ave. abutting USA Insulation.
Is it Edwin?
Edward,
Edward Bodett?
yes.
Thank you.
I don't have a problem with their expansion. Right now, I do have a couple problems. They have several dumpsters in their backyard, which are abutting my backyard, and they get emptied every Tuesday morning at 5 a.m. Not liking it. The other thing is, I don't know if they ever had the property surveyed, but they just came in and threw up an orange plastic fence in my backyard. I want a fence there that locks.
Is it on your property?
I don't know, did they have it surveyed? I didn't. They just came in and threw up a fence. Like I said, they don't protest what they're doing, that's fine, I just, you know. The dumpsters at 5 in the morning, that's gotta go, and if they expand, well, they're gonna put in 4 more dumpsters I gotta listen to at 5 in the morning?
Where does he live? Where does he live on the map?
You said
I am on the corner of
568.
Rosemont and Rockland,
Rosemont and Rockland.
508?
568.
568 Rockland.
So it's map 15, lot 36 on,
That says 508.
1536, okay.
yes.
1536? That's not the name that's on the map.
Edward Bodett is here?
That's me?
Yep.
Oh, Edward A., it says Heidi Merritt. Edward A. and Heidi
Yeah,
Merritt.
she's my
Okay.
significant other.
Okay.
So is that just a typo on the map?
So now you have an orange fence in the back of your
I
yard.
have an orange plastic fence like they put up on the highway when the snow's going off or whatever.
And where are the dumpsters that they pick
In my
up?
back, well, right over the fence.
Right over the fence in
And
your
my
backyard.
master bedroom's right in the back there, and that's all I hear in the morning on Tuesday mornings at 5 a.m.
Okay.
Because they fill them pretty good, and they beat them to death to get them emptied.
Yeah, they do.
I'm seeing a lot of acknowledgement back there that you're not the only one that's bothered by that noise.
Oh, good.
Okay.
And I'm not blaming them. I know they got a job to do, and I realize it's shit, but it just put up a fence, do something.
Okay. All right.
Um,
Well, one of the things that they said was that they would be willing to do a fence and some shrubbery and things to help
sound barrier.
help with as a sound barrier.
That would be something also to bring up to
Right.
planning board.
Right, that would be a plan.
Yeah.
Because
Because they have to go for site plan approval.
if it's approved here, they would have to go to the planning board, and that's where they would determine what's required as far as fencing and shrubbery and things that would help mitigate
In
noise
time of
and your
operation.
concerns.
Right.
Yes.
And I just like to ask, did they have it surveyed? Because they just threw up a fence. I didn't see any markers out there. All I came home one day and there was a orange plastic fence in my backyard.
The kind that are like a net?
Yes,
Okay.
like they put on the highways up on the
Okay.
overpasses.
Okay.
Like whatever, but I just don't know. I didn't see any markers where they had surveyed the property. Usually you see the orange paint or they put down stakes or something to show where the property lines are.
Yeah.
And I didn't see any of that, so I don't know if they just guessed or.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like they did their homework as far as the
Well,
property
that's
boundaries.
good. I am
concerned.
glad they did, and that's fine, but
It's a good sign.
the orange fence is off. Gotta go.
Anything else?
No, I think that'll do it.
Okay. Is
Thank
there
you.
anybody else that wants to come forward and come on down? And if you would tell us who you are and where you live, please.
Absolutely. So hello, my name is Trevor Moses, and this is my fiance, Jenny Anderson. We purchased our property in June of 2021, which is lot 15-5. That would be this lot that is right here, behind 15-4.
Okay.
So it's down here?
Yep, so we are about 120 feet long and 80 feet wide in the back.
What's the address, please?
12 Elmwood Ave.
Thank you.
So bear with me, I do speak to the USA Installation application. However, I do want to give you a quick background of us as well.
That's fine.
When we first moved into our home, the property directly abutting our backyard, lot 15-4, was undeveloped, flourishing with trees and wildlife. This is something you don't find often in this area. Having lived in New Hampshire my whole life, this was part of what drew us to this location. We'd even given some thought to purchasing this lot as to keep it this way. I'd like to pass around some pictures that I should have done a minute ago. They are dated on the bottom. So the first picture is when we first moved into the lot, or into our house. In September 2021, we noticed a company clearing trees on property 15-4.
This is a packet.
It's multiple pictures.
It's a lot of pictures throughout
Is it just
the
the
last
two?
year.
I think it's
Yeah,
just-
unfortunately, it's a lot of color.
I'll share it.
So yeah, we'll have to share a little bit here. We asked the contracted company clearing the lot what was happening, and they told us a parking lot was being built there. We are unsure if it was Circle National Club or USA Installation, or a mutual agreement between the two to clear the lot. We received zero notice about this plan, probably because they decided to move forward with the idea without getting any permits, according to Derek Horn, Joanne Duffy, and former zoning code enforcement officer Nancy Larson. We immediately contacted Nancy, who promptly came to come take pictures of the site, 15-4. The cleared lot now creates a direct view to where the proposed building will be located. Now, I understand this meeting is not about lot 15-4, or the club, or the trees. The variance application in question is to grant permission to change the zoning district line, which, as stated in section 1, question 5AI of the application, it is uniquely positioned to allow for a commercial use without impacting the neighborhood or the residential 2 district. As you can see from the photos provided, granting this variance would, in all certainty, be contrary to public interest. The company proposing this variance is not taking into consideration non-abutting properties being negatively impacted. Excuse me. In section 1, question 1, USA Installation states that they plan to focus on commercial uses of Woodbine Street, which, per Ms. Duffy, Joanne Duffy, and Mr. Adam Jacobs, the Director of Public Works, says that it is no longer a paper street because 20 years have passed from dedication without development or acceptance by the town. If that is truly the case, the land occupied by the paper street would have reverted back to full ownership to the abutting properties. And according to this fact, essentially now part of Woodbine Street is our property. It would be this continuation that goes here. So again, Glen Ridge kind of does an L here. So we do have part of that Woodbine Street as our abutting property. Also in this section, they state existing vegetation will remain along the perimeter of improvements. However, I'm not sure I understand how that can be if the proposed building's footprint runs through a clearly forested area and a silt fence that was put up in April. Question 2 of the application asked if the spirit of the ordinance would be observed. We do not believe that the spirit of the ordinance would be observed, as the majority of the lot 15-33 is residential 2, and only a small frontage to the east is commercial, and does not constitute a commercial district. Again, the original intent of zoning the area like this was to allow for commercial use without impacting the neighborhood or residential 2 district. Granting this variance would not do any justice. In fact, it truly impedes justice. USA Installation has used the past year of having a cleared lot to park their trucks, dumpsters, and trailers on this property, in my mind, constituting it as a parking lot. They have taken advantage of the system, while also negatively impacting surrounding properties, as you can again see from the pictures. They do not care about the environmental and wetlands surrounding the area. There are multiple times I've seen pink fiberglass insulation being thrown on the ground and disregarded. My fear is that this will continue to take place and may well increase with the proposed size of the building. In section 1, question 4, the variance application, USA Insulation states that the values of the surrounding properties will not be diminished. They believe that this property is located in a place unseen. Again, not thinking about all their neighbors. Please look at the pictures and what we moved into. Tell me that has not already been diminished. Now there is a plan to build a 4,800 square foot building that I can see from my kitchen window. Not a real estate expert. However, I would definitely avoid buying a house that has that in the backyard. Also stated in question 4 is that this area is located with an existing cleared area which will limit clearing of trees. So the feel of the district will remain the same. I agree. It is an existing cleared area because they cleared it last year. They have already changed the feel of the district. They also state in this section there will not be any activity on the north side. What about the south side? What about the south side of the building that we will be able to see directly into from our kitchen? Will there be a parking lot? That would need lights and proper water containment. As seen on local maps, parts of this are wetlands, and we have been informed by neighbors that there have been flooding and damage in their basements. We are concerned that if they are able to move forward with the commercialization of the property and building, that there could be problems with drainage that could damage our homes. Due to the scale at which this is proposed variance and building are being planned, our neighborhood is also concerned with noise levels. According to the Noise Prevention Ordinance, Section 1B, the making of such loud noises which are prolonged or unreasonable in their time, place, and manner of use are a detriment to public health and comfort of the town's residents. Every Tuesday, this is
5 a.m.
We said 5:30. We do have video of it today.
Jimmy might be getting coffee, but
5:30 a.m. to excessively loud banging. This is caused by USA Insulation emptying their trash cans into the dumpsters. We also feel that the 4,800 square foot building will reverberate noise back to our house. The Circle National Club, which has an outdoor area located on 15-3, hosts outdoor events, karaoke and bands every weekend, creating excessive unwanted noise that can be heard inside our and our neighbors' houses. This noise level has been miserable to live with, and we never expected to have to deal with something like this when we first moved in. With a large building directly next to the lot where the outdoor events are, even more noise would likely get directed towards our home. We would also like it to be known that the Circle National Club applied for a very similar variance on 7/5/22. This item ended up being tabled for the time being. We're worried that if this variance to the zoning line is changed for USA Insulation, it will give Circle National Club ample leverage in their case against the town. Finishing up here, we do not believe that the proposed use is a reasonable one. We believe that the use of this land will negatively impact our ability to fully enjoy our property and likely negatively impact the value of our home. For now, it has left us with limited privacy, an ugly dirt pile, dumpsters, large trucks as the view from our kitchen, window, deck, and backyard. If we want any privacy and to no longer have to look out at the mess they've left behind, we would have to buy a fence, which is something we did not anticipate having to purchase when we bought our home. Also, if we considered moving due to the actions of our neighboring businesses, we feel this will impact our property value negatively. I could easily see that the current state of the lot, large building, trucks coming in and out, and future parking lot will deter a lot of potential buyers or be a negotiating point to lower the cost of our home. Again, I'd like to thank you for hearing our concerns, and I'm happy to answer any other questions about speech or pictures or anything else.
Question,
Yes.
there are a couple of those pictures there. One, I believe, were dated 10/4. The view where you're looking and there's trucks in the distance. Is that the view from your back door, from the back of your house?
So there were multiple pictures dated 10/4. But yes, those are all views from my either window or walking out towards my backyard.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else have questions for this abutter or neighbor? None?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wants to make some comments?
This is our team over here, our neighboring team.
We live on Elmwood as well.
Okay. Board has no more questions. Do you have something that you would like to add after hearing the abutters' comments?
Certainly, Madam Chair. Just wanted to speak to, the proximity of the site to the neighboring property. This is, and I think there's some, potentially some confusion as to where some of the existing improvements are versus where the proposed building is proposing to go, which is up in here. The majority of the proposed building would actually be positioned as it relates to the neighboring property, or it's actually not a neighboring property, but to the concerned citizen, would be on the back side of the area that's utilized for I guess you could say, outdoor seating and restaurant area here. As you come down out of their backyard, there is a chain link fence here, and then this piece of property is landlocked and is technically in a butter. But so there's a great distance between the two. Certainly we can provide for some improvements. I think that there's a number of comments that can be addressed related to any kind of dumpster pickup. I mean, certainly other companies can be called, or a company can be called and told that they have to pick up during a more reasonable time frame. And in talking to my client, that's definitely something that can be addressed. The vegetation, we're going to be proposing additional landscaping and fencing to address a number of comments, or we would be to address a number of comments that were raised from both of the gentlemen that spoke. We did, I just want to state for the record, we did perform a boundary survey on the subject property. That is actually, we stamped the plan that was submitted with this application. I am aware of the area pertaining to the construction fence, and we would have no objection to formally installing a stockade fence or something like that in that location. I think that the positioning of this proposed building to the east of the site really will help provide additional separation and buffering to all of the neighboring homes, and we believe that we can adequately address and we really want to work with the neighborhood. So a number of the comments that have been shared are heard for the first time, but my client would hope to address those through a planning review, which would again address landscaping, fencing, any aesthetics of the building, and so on. And so I just wanted to touch on that, but we certainly appreciate all the questions and interest in the project.
Okay, Alan?
Can you go back to that second sheet that you had up there? It looks like on Woodbine, the tax map.
Okay.
Why is there a difference in the property line on Woodbine shown on that tax map than what you show on your plan?
So on our plan, we held this, there's an old right-of-way line here. This is technically on the tax map called out as an easement, but the research shows that this is actually still a right-of-way line right here. And so our surveyor our survey department does the research. And this line, none of the ownership changes, but we're showing that this is still a right-of-way for Woodbine right here. There's a number of documents in our research file pertaining to the paper streets, and to our knowledge, it's still a paper street based on the legal research and correspondence. There's been no information shared or provided to us by any of the local staff that would indicate otherwise, but there has been dialogue relative to the paper streets.
All right, thank you.
Yep, no problem.
You know, I actually had a question for the gentleman who was just speaking, because I missed a note.
Okay, well, let's finish here first.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure you didn't close it.
Okay. Anybody else have questions?
No.
Gwen?
No.
Judy?
No questions.
All right, so I have a question for you, sir. Would you mind coming back up?
Yeah.
Thank you.
That is Mr. Moses?
Sorry, I should do that.
That's okay.
You had mentioned the paper street reversion thing.
Yeah.
Do you have any documentation for that?
Yeah, I have an email from Adam. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, sorry. It's my question.
It's on his phone.
That's
Yes.
mine.
It's an email. Would you like me to read it, or?
How does that part work?
Yeah, you can read it.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Moses. I swung by and left a card in your door today. I couldn't see the branch in question. We had a branch fall down on Woodbine Street, so I wasn't sure if that was on me or if it was on the town to take care of that. So we might need a little bit of information before we can know if we can assist. The town doesn't have any maintenance responsibility for the paper street until they're accepted as public streets. But if the branch is within Glen Ridge right away, we might be able to help. To complicate matters, Woodbine has been discussed recently due to development plans on the back section. There's a solid chance that it is no longer even a paper street because 20 years passed from dedication without development or acceptance by the town. If that is truly the case, the land occupied by the paper street would have reverted back to full ownership to the abutting properties. So I received this email and I promptly called Joanne Duffy, who I believe actually went and asked Derek this question. That would have been on, I'll tell you the exact date, September 27th.
And I would just clarify that we have been looking at the documentation of the Paper Roads Committee. The Paper Roads Committee was formed in 1991 and delivered a report to the Board of Selectmen in 1992. The Board of Selectmen took a vote on their recommendation. In regards to Woodbine, it was to retain the first 350 feet and the turn towards Glen Ridge, but the remainder portion would revert back to the property owners. However, the Paper Roads Committee in 1991 and 1992 were looking at the law as it was written at that time and may not have been aware of how the law has changed over the years. So we have begun the process of working with town council to clear up the Paper Roads Committee in that act of the 1992 zoning. So we are uncertain of the status of Woodbine. As the applicant is saying they would merge the lots together and have frontage on Rockland, I would hope that the discussion of the zoning board wouldn't get too confused with the status of Woodbine, because it would either be a paper street owned by the town or it would have reverted back to the abutting property owners and again, we are in the midst of researching that with help of town council.
Okay, thank you. Does that explain it enough?
Yeah.
For the moment?
For the moment. It was very confusing at the time too.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. You all set?
All set.
Anybody else back there want to comment? None? One last rebuttal opportunity if you want, since a butter has spoken again.
I don't have anything else to add, Madam Chair, other than stating that everything on the record shows that Woodbine is still a paper street, and we certainly can't contest, efforts that may be ongoing, but I think the plan that we have before you that has been stamped and reviewed by our licensed surveyors is appropriate.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well,
If I may just bring up the,
and
prior
you,
to the last.
you are
I'm Steve from the USA Insulation.
Steve,
Ducharme.
what is it?
Ducharme, D-U-C-H-A-R-M-E. So when the bar next door cut the trees down and whatnot and stumps, last winter they had placed them all over on our side where we want to put the proposed building. And I had constantly asked them to take their stuff and get it hauled away, and they have done nothing, so I moved everything over onto their lot. So all those stumps you see in those pictures are all on their lot next door.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nothing.
I thought you were going to say something.
I was.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just waiting to talk to the group. As soon as
Okay.
you close
All
it.
right, public hearing is closed. Now you can speak.
I just want to say that, seeing the size of that 1533 lot, and it is in a residential 2 zone, which is not commercial,
Mm-hmm.
which is not for businesses, it's
Mhm.
for the residents.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that it is affecting their ability to substantially enjoy their living. And they never expected it. And it is our job to recognize that they never expected any of these people, not just the people that spoke, any of the people ever expected to have this push of commercial, how we have had applications coming and going of pushing commercial into residential areas. And I don't think it's right.
Okay. Ellen? No comments?
No. I've heard everything I need to hear.
Okay. Lynn?
Except that I'm not sure exactly how we're pushing commercial in. The other side of that coin is when you're in a situation where you've got a split zoning line like this, to not consider some relief, you're also denying the commercial side of the thing some of their rights to make full usage of their property. So I can see both sides of the question here. When you're dealing Mast Road, Rockland Avenue, that area in general is a pretty well commercialized
We have
part
that,
of the
right.
town, and that's why we have commercial and CIFZ to try and get these kind of businesses in along the main arteries.
Well, I'd like to think that what came first? The property bounds or the zoning line?
The chicken.
Okay? Yeah. No, but seriously, technically speaking, when people did zoning lines, they would try to take and adhere to some kind of property line issues. So when I see a zoning line that I don't know what establishes that zoning line. Is there something, a deed that establishes that zoning line?
Zoning line is established by a vote at town meeting. It's my understanding that throughout the town of Goffstown, there are split zones along Mast Road, along Center Street, and other areas of town, because when it was proposed to the voters of the town back in the 60s, the zoning line would be, go back 150, 200 feet from a road, rather than,
Yeah.
and that's how it was proposed at town meeting, adopted by the town, and the zoning maps have been handed down since that time.
And I do agree, I have seen that this is
Yeah,
a
I know
fine
it's
line we
helpful.
have come
That's
across recently in our past 3 or 4 months here of the commercial zone and Mass Road being as busy as it is and residential and bumping the commercial. It's that bumping line where the huge discussions come up.
Because in general with our development, we have so little available commercially developable land in town that, you know, this is Goffstown's burden in many ways. Or why your taxes are as high as they are.
My concern is that while the representative said this a couple of different times, something along the lines of that it's close proximity to other commercial and mixed properties, and the focus seems to be in his presentation, the focus is on the commercial use and the commercial properties. And it's not that they're ignoring, but it's I don't think enough focus or attention was given to the residential properties and the impact that it's going to have on them. I think between the noise of the vehicles coming in at whatever times that they would come and go, just the appearance, the pictures that the neighbor showed us, the appearance of what's going to be seen. I just have a lot of concerns about that. I mean, I don't want to see the quality of life of the abutters impacted with a commercial development.
If you go up Rockland, from the gas station forward, right? You've got NATO's and the gas station, that's the only commercial on that side of the street. The Circle Club is the only one commercial enterprise on the opposite side of the street, and the rest of it is all residential as it faces the street. So I don't know if we want to take that into consideration or not. You know, what?
Well, I mean, I agree also with the fact that for the variance, step 4, surrounding properties will not be diminished.
Oh, I think they will be.
Well, I really believe that will be also.
After seeing the
And the
pictures
truth
and
is
the
seen.
things, yeah.
So, just on one thing though, so some of those pictures, right, they are behind 15.4. Now, if 15.4 hadn't cleared their land, they would still be looking at trees. That's not these guys' fault.
No.
All right. And what I would say to that though is, if 15.4 decided, hey, we're going to clear the trees on our land, well, that's entirely within their right too. So, as a landowner, you got to be prepared for those kind of things and be
Well,
ready to put up your own blockage.
They had the Circle Club had an application into the board and withdrew it.
Yeah, but we can't take that into account because we have no idea.
It's in your, you got a package on it.
It was withdrawn, right?
But you got a package on it. Did you read it?
They withdrew it. We didn't consider,
We didn't consider it, but that doesn't mean it's a public record because it was submitted.
But the real question here, and I just worry that in our analysis of this, we're commingling two things because you've got an entirely different property owner, different situation with no direct connection to the current application, but yet we're making that a heavy factor in considering the application that's before us. There's just no proof that I can see of any direct relation between what I'm not sure what EBRC Holdings is, whether they're related to the Circle Club, you know, what the story is, but that's a separate situation entirely from the application that's before us.
I think, for me, one other piece, and were it not for the fact that this person now may conceivably be in a butter, because if Woodbine Street did revert, then that would
We would not consider that a butter for notification under the, so I would not consider that an abutter as defined by state statute. However, there, under land use, there are affected parties. So a butter is somebody that has a, the shared property line. That doesn't mean that they're not an affected party to this application.
Okay.
I think they are an affected party to the application.
And I'll let the zoning board make that determination.
So-
I'm saying, for the purpose of noticing under the land use statutes, they are not an abutter. However, for purpose of potential future appeals or for testimony before you, they could demonstrate that they are an affected property owner.
Okay. So, this is Woodland Street, right? Or, sorry.
So the way the tax maps depict it now, it goes up until this line here.
130 feet.
The first 350 feet, and then it turns left towards
350 feet.
Glen Ridge.
Oh, so it's past this
Oh, it
intersection?
goes all the way up here
Yes.
then.
So
Yes.
if that's the
Does.
case,
That's how
and they were right,
That's how the tax maps.
okay, so according to this, which I'm looking at here, if this actually did revert, then they could conceivably be a property owner here.
No, you split the road from the middle. So they would take ownership of this portion, and then this portion would go to 15-4, this portion would go to 15-31.
Oh, I see.
So they would
Okay,
not.
Thank you. That was what I was missing. Okay. All right, then that problem is removed. Okay, I don't have any more questions.
No question? What?
Not at the moment.
Alan?
I'm done.
Judy? No. Okay. Well, is anybody ready to make a motion?
Wait, I'm sorry, wait a minute. Where does the access for this property, 1533, where does that come from? This?
No, Woodbine Street.
Woodbine.
Yes, there.
Oh, because it goes to here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
My gosh, I need some coffee.
And they would have to use Woodbine because even if they merge the two lots, I don't see where they would have room to come up through 1534 to Rockland or out through 1534 to Rockland. They would have to come out Woodbine.
Well, that's what I was trying to figure out, so.
Who's going to bite the bullet and make a motion?
So we're not debating merging these.
Nope.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion,
Go ahead.
I think, if I can.
Go ahead.
I'm so new at this too. So I'd like to make a motion to deny the request for a variance to allow for a contracting business within a residential 2 district, which is not permitted by per section 3.11.I.11 in the principal uses of the Goffstown zoning ordinance.
Okay. Do you want to add any findings to that? Reasonings?
That is the reason.
What is?
there's a reason for my denial. It's not permitted per section 3.11.I.11 of the principal uses of the Goffstown ordinance, and it's within a residential 2 district.
But that's why they're asking for the variance, because it's generally not permitted, so they're asking for the
And
variance.
the allowance is that it's either allowed or denied, so.
I don't think we can't do
Well,
it
I'm
on
new
that,
at
we can't do
this.
it on that basis.
On that basis.
Yeah, because it's already not allowed.
Okay.
And they're here to ask us to make an exception to allow it anyway for the
And
for the
so-
variance. So why, so
Yeah.
the criteria we have to meet, or not meet, but the criteria they have to meet, is finding that it's not contrary to
Well,
the public interest.
Yeah, yes, and exactly, and what I'm saying is, for step number 4, surrounding properties will not be diminished, I believe that that is not true in my personal understanding. And unnecessary hardship, if the ordinance is enforced, the unnecessary hardship would be on people who live in the area, who have their diminished properties happening around them. Spirit of the ordinance is observed. Is the spirit of the ordinance being observed?
Do you think it is?
No, I don't.
Why?
Because
We
I
just have to
believe-
put it in words, on paper.
Putting that into words would be, spirit of the ordinance is not observed because of the location of the property to be built in the residential 2 zone, affecting the surrounding properties who are the direct abutters of the property in the R2 zone.
Okay.
I don't believe that's really effective, but.
And did we address public interest? Did you comment on that?
Yes.
No, I didn't, you did. Did I?
Alan? Want to put it into words so I can write it down?
And it's not in the public interest because it's a commercial in a predominantly residential neighborhood.
Okay, I would agree. You know, the applicant's variance responses says that it's, wouldn't be contrary to the public interest as the proposed commercial development would be located in close proximity to other commercial and mixed-use properties, but it neglects to include the fact that it is also so close to these residential properties that will be impacted by it.
Yeah. I just don't think it meets it.
Okay. And then substantial justice? And they don't have to meet, they don't have to, I mean, they can meet some of them, but not all of them. We don't have to find a reason that they don't meet every single one of them.
Just one.
Just one, that's all it takes.
I think that one of the biggest might be the fact that it would diminish the value of some of the surrounding properties because of that activity, is a singular activity.
What singular, this is the part that I guess I'm trying to figure out, what singular activity? Like if they if they're willing, again, they're talking to us now about what they plan on doing with landscaping and fencing and working with their neighbors and stuff to try to keep it down. But they're driving trucks in and out of this building and storing them there. I don't see a huge impact there.
That's not already there. They're
Yeah.
already conducting the same business from that property, and this would just be
If they're willing
an
to.
expansion
Yeah.
of the operations, but nothing substantially different or new from what's in operation there already.
I mean,
Except it'll just be further into the residential zone, closer to the abutting properties. Is that right?
4,800 square feet, is that what he said?
The building, yes.
Well, slightly, but if I'm looking at the scale maps here, you've already got a sizable garage building on the property that doesn't look to be more than, looking at the map, 35 or 40 feet away from the proposed building. So, again, same activities, same property.
I mean, if it helps to clean up that back space too, with all the dumpster.
I mean,
stuff.
they've indicated a willingness to work with the abutters and try to mitigate some of these things which would be part of the site plan review.
A lot of items would be site plan review, yes, I agree. But I agree the impact on the abutters is significant. Okay, so we have the motion. Wait a minute.
You do not have a second yet.
You do know.
Judy made the motion, Alan seconded the motion to deny, finding that it is that it is contrary to the public interest because it is a commercial use, because of the commercial use in the residential zone. The spirit of the ordinance is not observed because of its effect on the abutters, and the emphasis especially seems to be on the surrounding property values would not be diminished in the thought that they would be.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
And against?
Oppose.
No.
We have them 3-2. Motion carries. The application's denied.
Now, do we have to comment on the special exception being moved?
No, the special exception is moved. We've already discussed that. They have withdrawn
Oh, that's
that, basically.
They actually never submitted, so.
They never submitted?
Correct, we
Okay.
put that in just in case they were going to need to, thanks.
Okay.
That has been
Shorter than 15 minutes ago.
3 hours.
Are we done?
Motion to adjourn. Jason? Second? Who's going to second?
Second it.
Judy, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.